There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. Please be seated. Honorable members, good afternoon, and please be settled. Stay where you are allocated a seat. Keep a safe distance from each other so that we keep this pandemic at bay. The first item on today's order paper is questions addressed to ministers in Cluster 2, Social Services. Honorable members, please give us an audience. There are 4 supplementary questions. This is a reminder. On each question, parties have given an indication which questions their members wish to pose. Adequate notice was given to parties for this purpose. This was done to facilitate participation of members who are connecting to the sitting through the virtual platform. The members who will pose supplementary questions will be recognized. In allocating opportunities for supplementary questions, the principle of fairness, among others, has been applied. If a member who is supposed to ask a question through the virtual platform is unable to do so due to technological difficulties, the party whip on duty will be allowed to ask the question on behalf of their member. When all supplementary questions have been answered by the executive, we will proceed to the next question on the question paper. The first question has been asked by Honorable S. Tambo to the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Technology.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. In view of the fact that the Republic is in the middle of a pandemic and that many students have no data and no access to university residences,
Honorable Member Hooker, you've asked a question. It is the minister who will respond to you, and then you will have the first supplementary question.
Sure.
Okay. All right. That happens, yeah. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker, and thanks to the Honorable Member for the question. It should be noted that part of the university's multimodal plans involve supporting those students who do not have devices to acquire these and allocating data to students. Information collected from universities indicated that by the 30th of September 2021, 90% of undergraduate students, including 91% of NSFAS-funded students, were being allocated data. An analysis of student performance in 2020 and the challenges that face students in engaging with multimodal forms of learning will still be necessary. The proposed policy that the member is asking about is aimed at encouraging students to pass their courses and/or modules each year and ultimately attain their qualification within the allowable timeframes. The proposed policy on the 75% progression rule, if implemented, would only apply as of the 2023 academic year and would not be applied to students who enter higher education for the first time. This is in recognition of the transition that many students make from high school to university. NSFAS is considering all inputs at the moment that have been received through the current consultation process, and once they are done, they will submit the recommendations to me. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Tambo, it's your turn now for the first supplementary.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The culture of a lack of consultation, which informs the proposition of a 75% module pass rate to retain funding seems endemic in the sector. The position is basically a meritocracy that is not considerate of prevailing social conditions, and universities seem to have inherited this attitude. We are now seeing universities implement vaccine mandates outside of broader democratic consultation in the country. What is the view of the department on mandatory vaccination as a prerequisite to registration and access to campuses? Thanks, Deputy Speaker.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. The follow-up question the member is asking, I answered it this morning. That the reason why there is consultation around increasing the number of modules to be passed each year is so as to ensure that students progress and are able as much as is possible to finish their degrees or diplomas within the set time. At the moment, progression is half, which means if that is we keep that criteria, a 3-year degree will take 6 years to finish. Now, we cannot want to appear as revolutionary, as sometimes the EFF does, by promoting and institutionalizing failure. Bafuna sithi ukufail into enhle. Siyeke nje singayilungisi lento ingane zifaile kuthiwa hayi makuvunyelwa ingane ukuthi zifaile kusho ukuthi yonke into ihamba kahle. We cannot do that as government. In any case, to cater for students who come from disadvantaged backgrounds, already, Honorable Deputy Speaker and members, we allow 1 more year to finish a degree or a diploma for all NSFAS students. We call it N+1, precisely to cater for students who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. But also at the same time, it would be wrong to argue that all students who come from disadvantaged backgrounds, they perform badly. Some of them, they are stars. They finish their degrees from Mkukwini in record time. So all what we have now does cater for all the things that the honorable member is concerned about. But of course, this is still subject to consultation, and it will come back to me once the consultations are done, as I have said, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Honorable Minister, unfortunately, he is supposed to ask 1 supplementary question.
Okay.
And the time has unfortunately finished, yeah. The second supplementary question will be asked by Honorable J.S. Mananiso.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And indeed, I can reaffirm that the Minister has responded to comrades now. My question is,
Point of order, Deputy Speaker.
what consultative processes in the department
Deputy
undertaking
Speaker.
lines of NSFAS?
Yes, what are you raising on?
Deputy Speaker, I asked 1 question. You can't confuse a preamble with a question. The question was on vaccine mandates. That is revealing of a culture of lack of consultation. There was 1 question, it was on vaccine mandates in universities.
Don't repeat that. Don't repeat that. I heard you, and I told you that in addition, the time of the minister has expired. So there's no question about the appropriate of the question. You were given an answer within the allocated time frame. No additional response could be made because the minister's time has expired. Honorable members, we will now proceed. Finish your question, ma'am.
Mamela
he, wabona hakitsi bina ntse le teng nako ya hao. O tlo e nka kae o tlo e etsa ntho e?
Ke a leboga. Ne ke botsa Minister gore what consultative processes in the department undertaking in revising the guidelines of NSFAS to improve outcomes, and what impact do standards have on performance, and why do eligibility standards matter, noting that NSFAS students perform relatively higher than other students in the university system? I thank you. Ke a leboga,
Thank you very much. Minister?
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Thanks to Honorable Mananiso for the follow-up question. The process of consultation is being undertaken directly by NSFAS itself as the entity that is responsible for giving out.
Honorable, sorry, Minister, honorable members on my left, can you please lower your voices? You are quite loud. Your caucuses are taking too long and are too loud. Please, go ahead, Minister.
I was saying, Deputy Speaker, that the consultation processes are being undertaken by NSFAS itself, which is the entity that is responsible for allocating bursaries to students. Secondly, I just need to emphasize that the importance of ensuring that students, that we change the eligibility criteria to consider increasing the number of modules that must be passed each year is aimed mainly at ensuring that there is movement in the studies of students, and we encourage as many of them as possible to finish on record time. That has got multiple positive impact. Firstly, it's good for the students to finish on time. Secondly, also, it makes sure that we do not keep students in the system who are supposed to have finished, because that is actually also a cost, not only to the student, but also is a cost to the government as we actually support the students. But the main thing is to ensure that students are able to get out of the system with their qualifications as soon as possible. That is the main intention of actually revising and looking at the guidelines. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. The next question is asked by Honorable C.V. King.
Thank you. Minister, from a parliamentary question, it was stated that 8,252 NEFSA-funded university students and more than 88,000 NEFSA-funded TVET students did not pass the 2020 academic year, meaning that they could not achieve a 50% overall pass. For NEFSA to be funded, to have academic excellence and fund academic excellence, is consideration given to amend the guidelines for an incremental pass over 5 years, starting next year in 2022 with a 55% pass, and then in 2026 have a non-negotiable 75% pass rate.
Minister.
Thanks, Honorable Deputy Speaker, and thanks to Honorable King for her follow-up question. I just want to make it very clear that the guidelines on this matter at the moment, they stand at 50%. They've not as yet been amended. We are consulting about amending them. The final guideline will only be adopted once NSFAS has come back to report to me about their process, and after which what the recommendations of that would be. But I do want to emphasize this. We allow 4 years for NSFAS students to finish a 3-year degree. Now you can then make a calculation, your own mathematical calculation. What percentage of modules do you have to pass each year in order to be able to finish a 3-year degree by 4 years? It's 75% plus, actually, per annum, if you are actually going to be proceeding. So what also these guidelines are doing are aligning themselves, seeking to align themselves with what is the policy in any case. Because almost irrespective of what you get each year, if you have done a 3-year degree for 4 years, NSFAS will not be able to fund you after that if you have not been able to finish your degree, for instance. That is the purpose of this. It's not as sometimes, unfortunately, it gets presented in the media as if we're an uncaring government who doesn't care about students, that they're progressing. The fact that we are funding them plus 1 year to fail is the most generous thing we could do, and nowhere else in the world is this happening, by the way, except in the Republic of South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The last supplementary question on this one is from Honorable Kwangwa.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Perhaps the question, Minister, In fact, I think what I should say is that I expected you to explain as well the rationale behind the 25 percentage points jump, which constitutes 50%, in fact, of the current, in terms of the current regulations. 50% jump if you were to look at it. And secondly, I think, more importantly, should the focus firstly not to try, your focus firstly not to try and address and attend to some of the structural deficiencies and the operational inefficiencies of NSFAS before you engage in this discussion, because that has the ability to impact negatively on the ability of students to perform optimally academically. Thank you.
Minister.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. Thanks to Honorable Nkwankwa. Honorable Nkwankwa, if you want to ask me a new question on what is it that we are doing to make sure that the system is student-friendly, I'll be more than happy to do that. I'm saying this because I don't have the time now to be able to outline to you the amount of investment.
Sorry, Oh, you can't be behaving like that. Just switch off your and mute, man. Please, I know it's a mistake sometimes, but be alert and present to your system. We can't be having such interruptions every day, and we must remind members every day. No, what's wrong with us, man? Really? Go ahead, Honorable Minister.
Let me just say then, that for instance, we have got in relation, just to make an example with universities, we are doing similar things for TVET colleges. We have what is called a University Capacity Development Program, which is
Ngicela nimute please. Musanu nani ukubajoyina. Ngoba manje akusekho umehluko phakathi kwenu nabo. Please go ahead, Minister. I hope members are listening on the virtual platform to switch off their systems there.
We have got what we
Proceed, Minister.
We have the University Capacity Development Program, which focuses on improving, amongst other things, learning and teaching, strengthening support to students, as well as ensuring that we have got appropriately qualified academics in institutions. For instance, our goal is that in the end, you should not have someone who is a lecturer at a university who does not have a doctoral degree. We're working towards that. Those are all the things, because it's not in our interest as government, by the way, just to be satisfied by funding students, but being funded into a system that is not being responsive to them. So there are a lot of things that we are doing to improve the pass rate and to create student-friendly institutions, both at university and TVET colleges, and indeed in our community education and training. So we have to do both things. As we change the guidelines, we continue to improve the situation. One should not necessarily wait for the other. We have a comprehensive approach to ensuring improved outcomes from learning and teaching activities in our institutions. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Question number 313 has been asked by Honorable T.M. Masuta to the Minister of Human Settlements. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Greeting and thank you, Honorable Masuta, for the question. The issue, I must indicate first that government remains committed in terms of providing shelter, especially to the most vulnerable and the indigent communities. Yes, since I've been in the portfolio, we have received a report in terms of the unfinished projects across the country. Visiting the 7 out of 9 provinces as well, we have interacted with stakeholders where we found the unfinished projects. We are currently Deputy Speaker and honorable members, quantifying, we can say so far, we've been able to quantify 1.9 million units of houses that have not been completed, and this is for different reasons. One is where you find that somebody would have done a house, left it at a foundation phase because either resources had run out in terms of our allocation of resources. Others is because somebody would have received the money and never actually gone to finish. And those are some of the cases that are with law enforcement agencies. And others would be lack of understanding of what needs to be done. So it's at different various levels and also for different purposes, Chair. But what we are doing now is to quantify them, put them together in terms of the value, how much we need, and also to check the credibility of the structure so that when we say we are rectifying, we know that we're rectifying structures that will be able to stand. So we will be able to provide through the portfolio committee in 3 months' time, quantified a clear analysis of the unfinished projects across the country and where they are and how we are going to deal with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Masuta.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I hope you can hear me.
Yes,
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And thanks to the Minister for her answer. I would like firstly to compliment her on her recent appointment to this portfolio. And I'm sure she'll agree with me that she has her work cut out for her, especially given the 3 spheres across which this the mandate of this portfolio strikes. But based on that, Minister, what are the mitigating measures that you hope to implement in consultation with your partners at these 3 spheres to mitigate against all the myriad of challenges that have been there, not only for years, but in fact, in some instances for decades? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Masuta. Part of what we are doing, we are tightening around the contract management together with the provinces. Our conversation is to say we should not go out when we are not yet ready. That's the first thing. The second area as well is also around project management. We do know that part of the problem is because over time, when you link the project management and you link with contract management, there were not enough clauses that actually could hold contractors liable should they have failed to deliver on time and within the areas. So proper planning that we are doing, so we've decided that we'll do even in terms of our business plans, because provinces submit business plans which minister signs off, and together, especially with the metros. So what we are doing now is to be able to go in detail and have a conversation between ourselves as national and the province and together with local municipalities to tighten the areas that we are working for. We are going to implement within a particular financial year so that we are able to also ensure that we can make sure that we are able to implement. The last area of tightening is around our grants, where you find that if particular amounts are not spent, it at a time, for example, let's say February at the fourth quarter, National Treasury tends to take the resources away. That's where you find that some of these projects, whether will be at foundation phase and therefore they are not completed. We're having a conversation with National Treasury. I have already written to the Minister of Finance to request flexibility around the conditional grants of human settlements. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Mishwe, it's your turn.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Unfinished housing projects constitute fruitless and wasteful expenditure, encourages crime and vandalism, while wasting land that could be used to provide homes for families. Yet in Betuli, in the Free State, many of the RDP houses are without doors, roofs, and windows. In Mbadi, as an example, residents have been living in incomplete houses for over 10 years. Now, my question to you, Honorable Minister, is how many housing projects were left incomplete as a result of late payment by government, which caused contractors to become insolvent, compared to how many projects failed because of corruption with respect to housing lists? Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Mishwe. I think one is that I acknowledge that indeed, when we have unfinished projects, we have a beneficiary that is waiting to be able to receive that house. And that's why part of the issues to resolve around beneficiary list who are sitting on our list and reflecting having benefited, whereas it's because of the unfinished projects. We do note, I was in Free State, I've been to various projects where I did see some of these unfinished projects, whether they are at foundation phase, whether they are at the wall plate phase and all those things. But the issue here in terms of different categories, honorable members, I will be able to come back, as I said, in 3 months' time to be able to classify. These ones are as a result of late payment, and this one are as a result of, for example, because of corruption and all those things. But one example that I would want to reflect, for example, I came across a project in Volmaranstad in the Northwest, where we are now currently, and I will be visiting Northwest on the next month, within this month in December, before we go on recess, and deal with the projects whereby service providers were on site and they have not been paid, and therefore the projects have stopped. So, Deputy Speaker, currently we cannot give to say in this province how much it is, we are doing that quantification. And that's why we are requesting 3 months to be able to finish that work, do due diligence, and then we can give accurate figures so that we're not found to have misled Parliament nor the honorable member.
Thank you, Minister. The third supplementary is asked by Honorable E.L. Powell.
Thanks. Honourable Minister, on the issue of measures taken to recoup funds lost to incomplete projects, we've recently been informed that the Auditor General reported to us that last year the SIU launched investigations into allegations of corruption in respect of the emergency housing tenders that were awarded during the COVID hard lockdown period. And we know that a number of HDA officials were arrested and are now out on bail. But our committee has been informed that no recommendations or appropriate action was taken by the accounting authority against those implicated. Can the Minister please explain to this House what action she has now taken to implement consequence management in her new department? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and thank you, Honourable Paul. Let's correct the recommendations of SIU. This is in relation to Talana in Limpopo. One, the recommendation from SIU, they referred 6 officials to us. 1 has since resigned. 2 have been taken to disciplinary processes through HDA, which is our entity. And these 3 were the first one that were recommended. When I met with SIU just end of October, they had now were in the process of referring 3 additional officials at HDA, and therefore the accounting authority at that time, who was the administrator, had committed to do work in terms of ensuring that even those 3 are facing a consequence management. We have since appointed HDA board, and part of what I've said to them yesterday was this matter of consequence management. In relation to the contract, who had submitted documents that were fraudulent, what HDA has written to National Treasury to get this contractor to be blacklisted, and as we are aware, it's a process that takes long. But again, from SIU, as the responsible body, they've actually opened a case, they've assisted us on behalf of government. The contractor was appearing on the 4th of November in the Polokwane Magistrate Court. But secondly, not all the money was paid. So currently as well, we are in the process through SIU to recover some of the money that has been paid. So there has been consequence management in relation to the TRU, specifically in Telana case. Others, we are waiting for recommendations. Once we receive, we will deal with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. The next one is asked by Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, allow me to extend my condolences of the NFP on the passing of Honorable Mhlongo, and may his soul rest in peace. Minister, thank you very much for the report that you've given, and where you indicate in 3 months' time you will give a comprehensive report. Would you consider adding to that report, Minister, for the purposes of transparency, value for money, identifying repeat offenders or delinquent contractors, all contracts that have housing contracts that have been allocated countrywide, including the names of such contractors and the value of those contracts, and whether there's been any escalation in these contracts to ensure that we are not now costing us a lot more than before. Thank you.
Honorable Sheikh Imam, in future when you have such an indication as you just made, it's always better to let us know so that we do it on your behalf for the entire House to acknowledge passing away of a member, if that's what you were saying. Please,
Okay, thank you.
Protocol can be stiff, but we have to use it. Yeah.
Sorry, Chair. Siyabonga ukukhalela uMhlongo. But uMhlongo bengayena eDA benge EFF.
Honorable member, it's okay. It's passing condolences to you. What's your problem? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Kahleni uma ubuntu sebubalekile ngaleyo ndlela kubi. Let's go to Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Sheikh Imam. I do think what Honorable Sheikh Imam is requesting, it will be quite an extensive work that you can't do in 3 months. I think we need to be quite realistic. And my fear with what the scope now he's talking about is that we might end up spending millions in investigations, whereas we need millions to deliver houses. So we'll see to which extent, Honorable Deputy Speaker, how we are able to be able to go to the details. But what I can assure Honorable Sheikh Imam is transparency and more accountability, but also caution that we shouldn't spend the limited resources that we have as the department in investigations instead of in delivering of the houses, because if we are to go into detailed verification, we might not be at a position as a department to do that. We might have to find a service provider that is able to give us those that this contract was supposed to be 20 rand, then it has been escalated. And you can only do that with, for example, forensic investigators. And we know, Deputy Speaker, they are quite expensive. So I'm just bringing caution while we'll do our best to ensure that there's transparency and accountability in terms of the work.
Thank you. The next question is 343, asked by Honorable Van der Merwe to the Minister of Social Development. Honorable Minister. Okay, unmute your mic, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I started by saying that condolences to the Mhlongo family, may his soul rest in peace. We had our moments in the House, may he rest in peace. The need to ensure that grants are paid only to those who qualify for grants they receive is fundamental, and it has to be appreciated and understood at all times. To this end, SASSA regularly checks the social grant database against PESAL information to ensure the integrity of the social assistance database. The exceptions are managed in terms of the provisions of the Social Assistance Act, even where public servants are involved. The suspension of these social grants which I know caused a whole lot of uproar, was reversed in November 2021 following the outcry that the vast majority of the beneficiaries were EPWP beneficiaries, workers who or interns whose stipend is paid through PESAL. This information is being validated with the Department of Public Service and Administration and will inform the review process that is being done. The review process will indicate that the amount overpaid, what was that amount overpaid, which has to be taken on as debt, followed by recovery processes. There is no indication at this stage of the actual amount overpaid. And the answer to B is that no disciplinary action has been taken against any SASSA official for the above, as there is no evidence that any SASSA staff member failed to implement the legislative prescripts for the approval of these grants. However, should any evidence be uncovered during the review process that the prescripts were not followed, disciplinary action will be implemented. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. The first supplementary is asked by Honorable van der Merwe.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable Minister, I've heard what you said, but what you are telling me, and because currently we've got 5,812 government employees who collected the 350 Rand grant unlawfully. And you told me in a written question this week that only 242 cases are being investigated, and none of these cases have made it to the police or the NPA. Furthermore, no government officials are suspended for these 350 Rand grants, which they collected unlawfully. It is clear, therefore, Minister, that it seems that your department has got no intention to deal decisively with corruption, to hold to account those who steal from taxpayers and from the poor. So my question is, how is it that you were not aware, for example, that government officials were collecting grants that were not due to them, the 350 and this 177,000 employees? And what are your plans to fix SASSA's vetting procedures and its databases, which are clearly now outdated, deficient, and are routinely being compromised, bypassed, and abused by fraudsters? There was also a story Sunday on Carte Blanche, Honourable Minister, where Ms. Fatima was able to approve grants for South African citizens who didn't qualify for them. So clearly your system is rotten, it's broken, there's corruption in the system, and your department and you as a leadership of this portfolio are not dealing with it decisively. Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and I thank Honourable van der Merwe. I do want to make it straight, and I do want to make it as a fact that we do everything we can to make sure that any monies that have been unlawfully taken by anybody in our system, that money has to be returned. We do have a debt book, and that debt book is what we use to try and recover the money as much as we possibly can. Secondly, also as fact, there is no way that we as a department or myself as a Minister of Social Development would stand on the way or tolerate any form of corruption that is being uncovered or discovered in the system. And thirdly, I also would like to make a distinction between the 350 and those officials who applied and got the 350, and this particular question that relates to public servants who, as I have indicated here, are public servants who fall under the EPWP. In fact, I think there's got to be a big separation between civil servants as well as EPWP workers or interns who actually get far less either as the stipend or whatever money is being paid. The challenge here is that some of them do need to get the money because they either taking care of children who deserve to get the grant that they receive. And therefore, there's got to be a separation between the two. And also to say respectfully, Honorable van der Merwe, The issue of the 350 is not what we are having a conversation about here. That is a separate question altogether, which I have many a times genuinely and frankly answered because that's what I believe in, but also to say the members of the department or the officials of the department, if by any chance any of the officials are found to have colluded or done anything in the wrong, believe me, we will take action against them. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Stock will take the second supplementary question from Honorable Bilankulu.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Deputy Speaker. Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I was told you are not, but proceed.
Fortunately, I'm here. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Honorable Minister, what system has the department introduced and envisaged to develop and improve its ability to have information sharing with different organs of state in ensuring the avoidance of double dipping of government financial support interventions to ensure optimum social assistance for the poor? Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bilankulu, for that question. At present, the SOCPEN system interfaces with the population register of the Department of Home Affairs to validate the applicant's identity number, marital status, and names, as well as the government's employee database called PESAL, to validate whether the applicant is employed in the public service or not. In addition, SASSA has an MOU to facilitate data sharing with the following departments: Government of Employees Pension Fund, National Student Financial Aid Scheme, Correctional Services, Unemployment Insurance Fund, and the South African Revenue Services. SASSA and the department is in the process of developing yet another MOU with the Department of Public Works so that we can also avoid some of these issues as correctly raised by Honorable Vandamere. I do also, Chairperson, want to indicate that during the 350 itself, it is where we realize that data between and amongst government departments has a challenge. Hence, it was taking long, for instance, to approve some of the applications, but we have to do everything we can to improve our systems. And now that we have even better technology and locally based technology, we'll try and improve in the best way that we can so that data within government is shared and shared easily. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Kwankwa.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, even though the question really is not about the 350 rands, but your responses to question have tended to point me to that 350 rands. According to the first special report on the financial management of government's COVID-19 initiatives, one of the issues that the Auditor General raised was the need to develop preventative control measures to ensure that payments of the special grant in particular are only made to those qualifying beneficiaries as per criteria. At the time of this discussion, a database management system had not been created which could pick up people who fall through the cracks and not be able to be picked up via the UIF, SARS, and NFSAS validation checks. What other measures have you put in place to ensure the integrity of the social grant system as a whole, including the 350, so that we don't end up with the allegations we once saw in the media and that we hear from colleagues from across the continent that there are people who come and collect social grants from neighboring countries and go back to those countries again in South Africa? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ngwangwa, for that question. And yes, it's important for us to appreciate the fact that we have to keep on improving our system. For instance, I may say I'm having endless discussions with the CEO about the SOCPEN and the old system called SOCPEN and the need for us to be able to acquire new systems that can be able to be effective, if I may use that right word, so that we do not have the kind of issues that are being raised about the wrong people getting social grants. But I do want to say, Honorable Deputy Speaker, that as far as the SASSA systems are concerned, really to a very large extent, when it comes to the ordinary grants that have been given, never mind the 350, the system has been working very well from a point of view of registration and ensuring that people are paid. What has been a problem, obviously, is how do we make sure that the information that is being given by the beneficiaries is the real information, and there can be checks and balances of ensuring, for instance, that it is not citizens who are coming from other countries who have got no citizenship of South Africa. But we must also realize that even for some of the people who are foreign nationals in South Africa, some of those who have already acquired the citizenship and have been here for a long time will not be excluded. But I do agree that the database management system needs to be improved. And there is already a process within SASSA of ensuring that we can acquire a better database management and processing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. The last supplementary question on this matter is by Honorable L.H. Aris.
Yeah, thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Minister, yes, I hear you hammer on per cell and per soul, but the reality of the information that you have is that you only have a per cell and per soul number. That's it. Minister, the biggest scandal here is that this flagrant theft of public funds meant for poor people was allowed to take place. This speaks directly to the lack of internal controls within SASSA and an outdated system, and perhaps collusion between corrupt officials and others outside of SASSA. What measures have you taken to tighten internal controls within SASSA to ensure that there is no corruption of any kind? And when do you take accountability for all this embarrassing corruption?
Honorable Member, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The one thing I can assure you, Honorable Aris and Honorable members, is that I will never run away from responsibility. I have always said at all times that when there are faults that are being found in my system, I take responsibility upfront by ensuring that I do what needs to be done in terms of ensuring that there is adequate checking of our systems, and there's also in fact, by the way, before we even get to the system of what needs to be done, government does have the systems of checks and balances. Yes, obviously the problem, it is about outside people who plot and plan and twist the system. And a few, again, I want to say a few, because if you look at the work that is done by the Department of Social Development overall, and in particular by SASSA officials who really wake up in the morning to go and do their job, they are in the majority. It's just a small minority of people. And I can tell you now that if we do come across those and they are found to be guilty, the law will always take its course in this case. There's no way that I, as a minister, can cover up when it comes to officials who are corrupt. I have no intention of doing that. And I have told the members over and over again, even in the portfolio committee, that I don't run away from responsibility. Where I need to take responsibility, I will take responsibility. I thank you.
Thank you. The next question is 314, asked by Honorable G.K. Tseke to the Minister of Water and Sanitation. I'm informed the Deputy Minister will take the questions. Honorable Deputy Minister.
Your Excellency, Deputy Speaker, thank you very much. I also joined the Minister Umakeba ngongidlulisa amazwi okuzwelana nomndeni wakwaNjomane babu Deputy Speaker. Well, thank you very much to the question asked by Her Excellency Comrade Great Zeke. The Constitution, Chair, implodes us that water is a right and it's a right to life. Therefore, every drop of water that other people are blocking or they are wasting, Chair, someone downstream or someone somewhere is looking for that particular drop. We have institutions like Water Use Association, Irrigation Board, and Water Users and Water Services Authorities, especially municipalities, that are supposed to report illegal water use. That will include unauthorized dams, the impoundment of these illegal dams, Chair, Deputy Speaker. It reduces the river or the stream flow, especially if these dams are constructed without outlet works, causing detrimental impact on downstream ecosystem and other water users. The areas of concern are in the Western Cape, Chair, where this is happening in Bredekoritz, also in Limpopo and some areas in Mpumalanga, in Lower Olifants, water management areas. And there is a high rate that we are detecting these illegal dams using our own compliance, monitoring, and enforcement units. One of the issues I worried, Chair, is also about the engineering of these such dams. Some of the structural integrity of these dams, they can cause a lot of problems. And we have also to ensure that we regulate. In South Africa, we do have about 5,576 of these dams that are registered. We are conducting regular engineering inspections so that there's issues of dam safety. In instances where we become aware of illegal dams, we are actually doing proactive surveillance. We report, we do investigation, and we direct those who are constructing those dams illegally to demolish it or to stop it. In instances when they don't do it, Deputy Speaker, we actually demolish the dams ourselves. And in certain instances, we open criminal actions as required by the law. At this stage, since 2017, we have about 174 cases that were reported, and 21 of them have been finalized. The other ones are a little bit difficult, Chair, because of engineering challenges. The biggest culprits on this matter, Chair, is mostly in the agricultural sector, where predominantly this sector is stopping water. Remember the problem of Cape Town. They said there was day zero, but there were certain farmers that were saying that water is available because they stopped that water at the top. The regulation of illegal dams, Chair, will continue to conduct them in a spirit that we all live downstream, and we need to prevent those upstream from abusing their privileged location to the detriment of the downstream water users. We urge public, we urge the leaders and all entities to report instances where water is being abused and is not available for other users. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Honorable Tseke.
Thank you very much, Motlatsa Musa Khotla, and thank you very much, His Excellency, the Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation. My question is that what is the department doing to ensure it builds a substantive surveillance and processing capability to address the illegal dams problems, noting the low number of cases identified and processed?
Thank you, Ma. Deputy Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. To Her Excellency, Comrade Whip of our committee, we are actually increasing the capacity of the department when it comes to the regulatory function in the department. Chairperson, we need to indicate it has been neglected over some time. We are trying to increase the staff numbers that will be responsible for compliance. We used to have the blue scorpions that need to be able to do some of these surveillance activities. At the very same time, Chair, we need to indicate that the advent of technology like we're using today will be able to place the eyes in the skies using the drones to deal with some of these particular issues. But for successful prosecution, we'll engage with our counterparts in the Ministry of Justice so that even the prosecutors and the law enforcement agencies, when we take these cases to the courts, we are very successful. But we'll also ensure that we call upon all South Africans who are actually using water to register for their water use in our own system so that we can be in a position to ensure that we do compliance licensing in terms of the process of verification and validation. But as we say, Chair, anybody who steals water, irrespective of your standing in the position in society, that's illegally. We are denying other people their human rights and dignity to water, and the law shall act, we shall act without any fear or favor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Basson.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Good afternoon, Deputy Minister. Minister, the previous minister indicated that the verification and validation of existing lawful water use and water registration will be speeded up. Minister, as you know, this is not happening at this stage. I would like to know from you, Minister, how are you going to fast-track the verification and validation of existing lawful water use in all water management areas in order to secure a speedy water allocation reform to address water needs in this country? I thank you, Speaker. Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair, and thanks to Honourable Basson. We have to admit, Chairperson, that this is an area of work that our department has performed very poorly over time, and our failure to perform in this area, Chair, has compromised the transformation and redress of ensuring that water is accessible to those that were denied water, including those that were denied economic opportunities with access to water. As the new Ministry of Water led by Minister Macingwane and ourselves, we have taken a decision, Honorable Basson, that very shortly we'll be working with our Water Research Commission, including with the CSIR, because of the repository and the capability that exists, targeting all the water management areas, especially the water management areas on risk profile on the basis of the stress catchments. We have started some work in the Western Cape. We are actually starting some work also in the province of Mpumalanga and other areas, so that all the users are registered so that we can be in a position to ensure that all existing lawful use are actually converted where necessary into compulsory licenses. But this is so important in our case, especially that government has prioritized the question of land reform so that nobody is going to be given land without access to water, but also equally so, there are those that still need water for other economic use, especially the issues of economic use by the agricultural sector. It's a matter of priority, and we'll continue to account to the House and in the portfolio committee about our plan to address the deficit we have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The next is Honorable Mokhotu.
Thanks, Chairperson. The question is going to be taken by myself, Honorable Mashala. Deputy Minister, water is a public resource and the state is the custodian of this resource on behalf of the people. As recent as 2018, your department reported that 1,000 illegal dams are siphoning water from the Kukha River and its network of tributaries in the Eastern Cape. What action have you taken against those who were identified by your department as having been culprits in constructing illegal dams? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mutlala. Chief Whips, please tell us when you change names on the list you submitted yourself to us. Now it appears a bit clumsy. Yeah, thank you very much. Honorable Deputy Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Your Excellency, Deputy Speaker, and thanks to Honorable Fighter Mhlala. We do agree with you that water is a public good, but we're also indicating that water, let it be a societal issue. We all have to take responsibility as individual citizens, including the institutions. As the department, we are frowning upon the question of illegal dams because it has an impact on our human rights and access to water. As of 2017, as I indicated earlier on, we have about 174 cases that were reported. And those that have been reported, we have also done our own investigation and finalized 21 of them. A number of them, Chair, are remaining about 153 because we also have to do some engineering assessment. And due to our limited capacity, we have to deal with some of those backlog. But I need to mention, Chair, that another difficulty we have is the administrative actions around giving people notices following the Administrative Justice Act. Sometimes it takes a long time before you can be able to start the prosecution. We'll even review the National Water Act with the possibility of coming with regulations and making it a stiffer sentence, Your Excellency, Deputy Speaker, that those who continue to deny people the right to life, which is the right to water by blocking water, it should be taken as a serious offense, including those who are destroying critical infrastructure related to water and access to water by communities. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Buthelezi, it's your turn. S.A. Buthelezi.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honorable Deputy Minister, while on the subject of water security, we've seen a total lack of accountability as South Africa's rivers are filled with waste, with no one wanting to take responsibility for the E. coli counts or the mountains of litter. Therefore, in light of the fact that South Africa is a dry country, classified as semi-arid, receiving just under half the average annual rainfall of the rest of the world, and predicted to become even drier with climate change, how will this department take action and intervene with specific timeframes, roles, and responsibilities to the astronomical E. coli numbers and other pathogens found in the rivers, which are light years beyond acceptable means? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Deputy Minister.
Well, the issue of pollution, Chair, it poses the biggest challenge of our time in South Africa, wherein we do have access to water, but this water is not fit for human consumption or for other uses because of the deterioration in the water quality. In the main, the deterioration in water quality is caused by human activities, especially with respect to agriculture, the landfill sites, the issues of industries, and the municipalities that are failing to manage their wastewater treatment works. As a department, we have revived, as we have announced in this budget speech, our Green Drop and Green Drop Chair. We have also improved our capacity around water quality monitoring. Our message, Chair, is very simple, is that polluters will pay. We will conclude in Cabinet early next year our submission to Cabinet with respect to the waste charge discharge system as a premium to all those that continue to pollute our ecosystem. But more importantly, society has an important role to play, and we will roll out a massive campaign in schools and in broader society that we can't litter in our rivers and our system, because our rivers and dams, they remain the most important component as a treasure for economic development, for recreation and other users. Therefore, we are appealing that all agencies, we need to be able to work together and be able to bring polluters to book. But we also have to start as members of parliament and legislatures. Let's adopt a river, let's adopt a particular dam, and ensure that we keep all those natural resources in a pristine environment. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The next question is 341, asked by Honorable L.A. Schreiber to the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation. Schreiber. What's the taal is that? Schreiber. What's the taal is that? Go ahead, Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I would like to draw the attention of the Honorable Member to paragraph 25 of the policy framework, which explicitly states, and I quote, "The policy framework commits to the development and study of all official South African languages, especially those which were historically marginalized, including the Khoi, Nama, and San languages. Institutions are required to develop language plans and strategies indicating mechanisms they will put in place to enhance the development and promotion of indigenous African languages as centers of research and scholarship." That is what the language policy framework for higher education says. So we are not alleging that Afrikaans, Khoi, San, and Nama languages are not being included. They are. Afrikaans is an official language and the other languages to be specifically developed. The notion, therefore, that Afrikaans, Khoi, Nama, and San languages are excluded in terms of the policy framework is clearly not the case and detracts from the general orientation of the policy framework and government initiatives and programs aimed at fulfilling the constitutional mandate of my department. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The Honorable DP Sibia.
I believe that's in.
Thank you.
Oh, no.
Hello.
Wait. Okay, please. Hold it. Honorable Schreiber.
Thank you very much, Chair. Deputy Speaker, just a note that I'll be asking my question in an indigenous language if you'd like to make use of translation. Deputy Speaker, soos wat u weet, veg die DA en verskeie burgerregte organisasies reeds van die begin van die jaar af daarvoor dat Afrikaans...
Stadig.
Is hy nog nie gereed nie? Skus tog.
Ja. Okay.
Is hy gereed? Dankie. Adjunct Speaker, soos u weet, veg die DA en verskeie burgerregte organisasies reeds van die begin van die jaar af daarvoor dat Afrikaans sowel as Khoi, San en Nama tale as inheems erken word. Dit word tans as uitheems beskou deur die minister se beleid. Ek het onlangs inligting ontvang dat die DAC-netwerk, 'n organisasie wat homself beywer vir agtergestelde Afrikaanssprekendes wat na Doman, Oudtshoorn en Kurtua vernoem is, reeds op 24 Augustus 'n vergadering versoek het met die minister om te verduidelik hoe hierdie diskriminasie 'n impak het op diverse Afrikaanssprekende gemeenskappe. Minister, waarom ignoreer u die DAC-netwerk se versoek vir 'n vergadering en sal u vandag, gegee wat u vroeër gesê het, in hierdie huis onderneem om Afrikaans sowel as Khoi, San en Nama tale as inheems in te sluit in die beleidsraamwerk voordat dit op 1 Januarie in werking tree? Dankie.
Honorable Minister.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, firstly, I just want to say I have not refused to meet with anyone. Anyone who would like to meet with me on the language policy is more than welcome, including yourself, Mr. Schreiber. I'm much closer than the UNESCO that we are trying to protest to over a non-issue. Secondly, the issue of the status of any language in South Africa, which you are raising with Afrikaans, because it's a different question. You are saying Afrikaans is an indigenous South African language. That's an issue for the Constitution and for the Department of Arts and Culture. I don't deal with the status of languages. I deal with the use of languages in the higher education and the post-school education and training sector. Anyway, I'm willing to debate you. I'm willing to debate you. The issue that we are trying to run away from is that our policy says we must develop languages that way. We protect all African languages, but we must pay particular attention to those languages that were suppressed in the past, which is the 9 Bantu languages as well as the Khoi, Nama, and San languages. Afrikaans under apartheid was privileged and all resources poured into it. And we are not against Afrikaans, but we must promote the African indigenous languages. That is the policy of government. And I am not going to be apologetic about that. To promote those languages is not to be anti-Afrikaans or to be anti any other languages. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable DP Sibia. You've got interesting initials for high office, DP. Yes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you to the Minister. What is the department doing to promote the indigenous languages in higher education? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, and thanks to Honorable Spear. Precisely, Honorable Spear, your question is so spot on. The reason why we've developed this language policy framework for the post-school education and training system is so that we actually bring justice to the language question in South Africa. It's precisely aimed at identifying resources and additional measures that we should put in place to promote the African indigenous languages. The fact that matric, the overwhelming majority of matric students right now are writing their exams in a language that is not their mother tongue, is criminal in terms of education. And that is what we are wanting to address. So, Honorable Spear, once all the discussions are underway right now by all the universities discussing the language issues, out of the consultations, we are then going to get a comprehensive report, especially on what additional measures to take. But I must conclude by saying, already some universities are doing very well. At UCT, you can't finish your medical training without at least having conversational course, irrespective of your first language. UKZN is doing the same thing in promoting isiZulu. In fact, I can go to a number of other universities, and we are working together to reinforce that so that there is justice in language in this country, and which is what is needed to promote an inclusive and a democratic South Africa. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The third question is asked by Honorable W.J. Boshoff.
Agbare adjunct speaker en agbare minister. Wat ek wil weet sluit baie sterk aan by wat die agbare Sibia nou net gesê het. My inligting is dat Afrika-tale, inheemse Afrika-tale soos wat dit tradisioneel benoem is, aan Suid-Afrikaanse universiteite agteruitgeboor het sedert 1994 en nie vooruit nie. Met ander woorde, vaktaal wat besig was om te ontwikkel in isiZulu, in isiXhosa en in Setswana. Dit is projekte wat gestaak is en wat beteken dat hierdie inheemse tale in 'n swakker posisie is as voor 1994. Wat ons by die beleidsraamwerk bring wat sê dat Afrikaans as 'n inheemse taal, maar wat voorheen bevoordeel is, eintlik eers ingehaal moet word deur die ander inheemse tale voor daar weer in Afrikaans gewerk word. Maar hierdie beleidsraamwerk sê basies presies dieselfde sedert 2003. En sedert 2003 het die Afrika-tale nie vooruitgekom nie. Ek wil graag weet wat gaan nou verander. Baie dankie, agbare adjunct speaker.
Honorable Boshoff, your time is expired. Be brief it still makes sense if it is brief. Honorable Minister.
Akhbare Boshoff. Ngifuna ukuvuma kuwena ukuthi akwanele sisakwenzile ukuthuthukisa izilimi zabomdabu kulelizwe lakithi. Kusekuningi okufanele sikwenze. But it's not true that we have not done much. And also, I want to come back to this. We have our role to play as higher education. We are playing that role. But the development of languages is broader than just in the higher education sphere. It's the entire education system, it's in schooling, it's in cultural activities comprehensively. That is why I am saying it's important also that this question will answer it together with my colleague, Minister Mteto, because he's the one who can be able to point out exactly what has been done comprehensively to actually deal with the issue of promoting. On my side, I had a task team in 2013 that I appointed, which came with recommendations which are forming part of this policy framework that I've actually put out, so that we are able to see what additional resources we need. One day, Honorable Deputy Speaker, I would like to debate with Honorable Schreiber and Boshoff. Why should you describe Afrikaans as an indigenous language in order to protect it? It doesn't require that. It's an official language, just like English, which is non-indigenous, but it's one of our official languages. As a matter of fact, historically, I would like to debate you. The origins of Afrikaans is actually in the Dutch language and was spoken as broken Dutch by the colored working class here, not even by the elite right-wing Afrikaner agenda that has been trying to exploit Afrikaans. It doesn't matter where its origins are. It doesn't matter. Don't try and turn history and say the origins of Afrikaans is in Africa. The origins of Afrikaans is in Dutch, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's this historical thing. Let's focus on the real. It's the development of the languages that were viciously suppressed by the apartheid regime. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. EFF, the next supplementary question. The EFF, you haven't given us a name for your next supplementary question.
Yes, I'll be taking the question.
Who are you, ma'am?
Madoko.
Say that again.
Madoko.
Okay, all right. Let's proceed. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, it is true that Afrikaans still enjoys privileges not afforded to indigenous languages in this country generally, and in institutions of higher learning in particular. In addition to what you have said you have done already as the department, what practical steps have you taken to ensure that this colonial and apartheid legacy of marginalization of African languages is addressed at institutions of higher learning?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, and thanks to the member. I hope that I had answered that question already by saying what actions are we taking, and the current discussions on the language policy framework, the initiatives that we are supporting that universities are taking to promote the use of African languages. I also, by the way, want to say to the EFF, let's be careful. In many ways, this debate is a false debate. It's a fight between the DA and the Freedom Front Plus as to who is the best representative of the Afrikaans language and the Afrikaans speakers. I'm just being collateral damage in what is actually an electoral, and this issue arose now in the lead up to the local government elections because the DA is scared that the Freedom Front Plus is taking its voters away from them. That is why they don't deal with the real issues. I've said to Honorable Schreiber, go and debate right now this language policy framework. Don't come and tell me all other things. Come, let's debate. Yes, I'm more than willing to do so. Rather than trying to do what we are doing, this kind of trying to appeal to African speakers in order to increase the vote of the DA. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next question is 312, asked by Honorable Mishwe to the Minister of Social Development. Honorable Minister.
Order, honourable members. The Minister Zulu is supposed to reply to this question. The honourable minister's mic is muted at the moment. Can you just unmute, honourable minister?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Honourable members, thank you, firstly, Honourable Mishwe, for your question. And the Department of Social Development spends more than 180 billion on social grants per annum to support vulnerable and poor individuals in South Africa. It is important to note that our current social grants, excluding the SRD, mainly support those who are outside of the labor market, such as the elderly, children, and people with disabilities. The department is currently in the process of finalizing a framework for linking social protection beneficiaries, including able bodies dependent on social grants beneficiaries, to sustainable livelihoods. And again, the issue of able-bodied is for some discussion for some other time. The target group will be broader than just the social grant beneficiaries, will include other members in their households who can benefit from such assistance. These will also include social relief of distress beneficiaries, those who receive a food parcel or frequent community nutrition development centers, which we call CNDCs, targeted communities such as the Khoisan, and those who have dropped out of other government programs, such as the EPWP program. The framework, as mentioned, will be implemented during the 2022-23 financial year. And the objectives of the framework are to, amongst others, contribute towards creation of employment opportunities and thereby reduce levels of poverty, hunger, unemployment, and inequality, provide for an integrated approach to poverty alleviation and reduce intergenerational poverty, empower and strengthen the income, assets, and capabilities of social protection beneficiaries, and enable them to achieve sustainable livelihoods. And lastly, create a gateway to opportunities that will promote self-reliance. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Meshu.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Honourable Minister, for that reply. South Africa currently has more grant recipients than salary earners, and millions are still waiting to hear the outcome of their grant applications. According to the senior economist at the Efficient Group, Dr. Francois Stoffberg, we have about 19 million South Africans living on social grants and 14.9 million who have jobs. And this is totally unsustainable.
Order. May I ask the Honourable Mpushi, please switch off your microphone. You are disturbing the sitting. Please continue, Honourable Member.
Given the appalling state of filth from uncollected rubbish and neglected drainage in many CBDs and townships throughout the country, which threatens residents' health and safety, Honourable Minister, I want to know whether you have considered to the urgent employment for people on grants to clear away rubbish and clean ditches. This would be vitally important for public health and safety and would give the unemployed an opportunity to do something worthwhile with their hands and earn an income. This, I believe, will help those who are on the system of grants look forward to the day they will be removed and when they will be able to have jobs to satisfy and look after their families. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair and Honourable Meshwe, for that question. I firstly want to make a distinction, and a very clear distinction, Honourable members, between the people who receive the social grants and the reasons why they receive the social grants. Firstly, the grants, as I indicated earlier on, it is grants that are given to the elderly, and there's just no way that we can want to start removing the elderly from the social grant because they are already in pension and they deserve to have that money. And maybe may I also remind the honourable members that the majority of our people who are elderly, who are dependent on the social grant, many of them didn't call for what is happening to them. Many of them didn't have jobs at the time when they were supposedly the sole abled body. Many of them were not even able to save as much money for their future and for their retirement because they were busy taking care of their children and grandchildren, and they were earning miserable salaries at that. And some of them actually didn't even work or didn't get any salaries at all. So there must be a distinction. And then others are receiving the social grants because they are in the indigent register, or they are children whose mothers have to take care of them because some of the fathers are nowhere to be found to take care of the children. And lastly, some people are also disabled, and that disability, they did not call it upon themselves. And therefore, there are those people who our government, as according to the Constitution, must take responsibility of because they are unable to take care of themselves. And then I will go to those that are unfortunately not finding jobs because jobs are not available and the economy is not doing that well. Yes, I will agree that those that can be able to find jobs and can work. And I do want to say that my experience with the South Africans, the majority of whom are unemployed, it's not to say they don't want to be employed. They do want to be employed, but the conditions at the moment are such that jobs are hard to come by. And lastly, COVID has also devastated our economy, and therefore a lot of jobs have also been lost. So when all is said and done, yes, we have to take responsibility and help those that are not as privileged as some of us are, who cannot take care of themselves, not because they called it upon themselves, because the conditions are very difficult. And yes, Honourable Meshwe, we do everything we can on our side as government to look for opportunities, including the EPWP program that we encourage people to participate.
Honourable Minister, your time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next follow-up question will be asked by the Honourable Shlongo. Is the honourable member available? Are you rising to take the follow-up question on behalf of the honourable member?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chairperson. Thank you, Minister, for such a comprehensive response. Noting that other departments play a developmental role in the skills development and economic development opportunities throughout our country, I would like to find out what is the department doing to integrate all key developmental services as it relates to the payment of grant beneficiaries. Thank you very much. Thanks.
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister. Please proceed,
Thank
Honourable
you.
Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Honourable Stock, for that follow-up question. In an attempt to provide integrated service delivery, the department participates in all joint coordinating structures, such as the Social Protection, Community and Human Development clusters and the Forum of South African Directors General, as well as dedicated interministerial committees and various joint task teams set up by government from time to time, aimed at coordinating government offering and opportunities for citizens, so that we also, as a Department of Social Development, can also be able to communicate what comes out of that and expose the opportunities for communities. The department has already made some progress with linking grant beneficiaries to other government services. For example, social grant beneficiaries automatically qualify for no-fee schooling, and the department also has an arrangement with NSFAS to provide support to former child support grant beneficiaries who qualify for further education. And I wish to thank especially those children, the child support grant beneficiaries who complete their matric, and we normally celebrate them and we assist them in making sure that their life is made easy and their journey is made easy towards the future, whether it's education, technical, university and all. We have also referred beneficiaries of COVID-19 SRD grant to the Youth Mobi online portal, which is an employment assistance program supported by the Presidency's Youth Employment Program. And the department and SASSA is currently engaging with the Department of Public Works to conclude a data sharing agreement. This will enable SASSA to share EPWP opportunities with social grant beneficiaries, and discussions are also being held with the Department of Employment and Labor to determine the possibility of linking grant beneficiaries who are of employable age to the employment services offered by the Department of Employment and Labor. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Opperman.
House Chair, I will be taking the follow-up question. It's Honourable Abrams. Minister, the vision of DSD is a caring and self-reliant society, as you mentioned, yet dependency on state welfare is increasing, and a matter that precedes COVID-19 and the 350 grant. As a result of a failing economy, grants will remain with us, trapping South Africans within a cycle of poverty if it is not reworked. DSD must focus from grants being a handout to a hand up by incorporating empowering conditions to a grant as to assist in creating an environment, an enabling environment for the private sector to create jobs. Minister, would you support and actively implement conditions attached to grants for those within that job-seeking age category? For example, attending free parenting skills or family strengthening workshops, CV writing or job interview readiness classes, substance abuse or GBV workshops, all which can be done within partnership with our NGOs and CEOs. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you, Honourable Abrams, for that question. I seem to be getting a sense that members think that when we are supporting our communities, and especially those that are left with almost nothing, we are creating dependency. Let this be very clear. Nobody wants to be dependent on anybody. And this, I know as a matter of fact, engaging with the communities on the ground, that they too want to be assisted so that they can be lifted into being able to do things for themselves. And the fact must also be indicated here that when communities are struggling because of one thing or the other, including COVID-19 right now, when we are supporting those communities, we don't regard that as creating dependency. Would rather help our people who go to bed with absolutely nothing, that those who cannot afford to even buy a piece of bread, would rather be able to support them and assist them until such time that they are able to take care of themselves. Also, we need to create a conducive environment for our communities and community members, and they are very much willing to be assisted. And therefore, Honourable Abrams, I fully agree with you. those that can be assisted, and we can see that people can be assisted with skills development, which the department is doing, particularly focusing on women who have found themselves in the safe houses. Yes, we will continue to do that, because when all is said and done, let it also be clear, the majority of our people did not call poverty, unemployment, and inequality upon themselves. So government and the private sector has to do everything they can. I don't think also when we are assisting our community is just a handout. It is an amount of money that they deserve so that they can be taken care of. And the conditions for grants and all, yes, of course, if we have among our communities a very small number of people who want to take advantage of the grants, but I don't think there's anyone who can say that 300 rands is enough for them to live. It's a way that government is saying, while you are looking for something, while you are struggling, let us lift you up by ensuring that at least you can buy a loaf of bread, meal, and sugar and salt for your families. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. And the last supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Breed.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, currently 27.8 million people are dependent on social grants. More than 6 million of this number are for the 350 Rand SRD grant. Yesterday's unemployment figures show that more than 660,000 people have lost their jobs during this last quarter, and they will be running to SASSA next. Minister, this will not be sustainable, and EPWP work does not create sustainable jobs. Would it not be better to, instead of paying out grants and handing out temporary jobs, that the department looks at a couponing system rather than a basic income grant to encourage job seeking and assist job seekers to apply for jobs, go to interviews, etc., so as to ensure that these scarce funds go towards getting people off social grants and into the labour market? This will also prevent young people to in future become dependent on old age grants. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you, Honourable Breed, for that question. Yes, I agree with you, and I think to a very large extent I have answered that question, but I still insist South Africa must not look at our people who are finding themselves in difficult situations as a burden. We would rather have a society of people who are able to go out and get the work and work for themselves because the conditions are available for that, because the jobs are being created. And government is not the one that is supposed to be creating all the jobs that are necessary in South Africa. So the whole discussion about economic transformation, the whole discussion about improving our economy and growing our economy, the whole discussion about strengthening our systems. For instance, if we look at the Department of Small and Medium Enterprises, supporting your informal segment, your informal business, supporting your cooperatives, we are all for that at all. But I do want to make the statement, when people are not in a very good condition, it is our responsibility, those of us, again, who are privileged to be able to put bread on our table, not to look at the poor as people who are just waiting out there for social grants or waiting to be given money for free. That we must know. Majority South Africans do want to work, but the conditions and the jobs are not being found for them. Yes, I agree. We must collectively all work together, private sector, government, NPOs, and all, to lift up our communities. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Members, question number 315 has been asked by the Honourable Mashlatsi to the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair, and thanks for the question from Honourable Mashlatsi. Also to quickly congratulate her on being appointed as the whip of our portfolio committee. I will make a statement on the state of readiness for the 2022 academic year, which will include details on the NSFAS allocations for the 2022 academic year, following the release of the 2021 matric results in January 2022. Nevertheless, I have already started this morning in the Portfolio Committee by beginning to give a clear indication as to our state of readiness for next year. The early January one will then be taking into account our response to the matric results and how ready we are for the numbers that will come out of that process. I will also continue to engage with the university and TVET college sectors on student funding matters and preparedness for the 2022 academic year. The expected NSFAS shortfall for the 2022 academic year is still under discussion within the budget processes following the medium-term budget policy statement, which outlined the funding requirements for bursaries for poor and working-class students over the medium-term expenditure framework. Further details will be provided following the conclusion of these engagements within government, of course assisted by a direct engagement between the Minister of Finance and myself in the process. Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Mashlatsi.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Indeed, Minister, you indeed responded profoundly and extensively to issues relating to, excuse me?
Order, Honourable Members. Ask your question, Honourable Member.
Responded extensively on the preparations towards 2022 academic year. However, it is important
Order, Honourable Members.
You see these ones, he dealt with them.
Your time will expire soon.
What is the progress, House Chair? What is the progress on the development of a sustainable funding model for the poor and the missing middle to avoid repetitive challenges of shortfalls, as well as demand exceeding the supply? You Afrikaners, huh?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mahlatsi, for that follow-up question. What I would like to say is that I have appointed a ministerial task team to support the urgent policy review that is needed on student funding, whose aim also is to come up with a comprehensive student funding model for the country so that we deal with matters of funding once and for all. The task team has been working since June, and it has presented to Cabinet twice already, and it's doing its work in two phases. Phase one has been to identify what options are there that we need to choose from. What is the best option out of those options in terms of supporting student funding model? The ministerial task team has already recommended to Cabinet that we need a mixed system, which will be bursaries, as we have now, for NSFAS students, as well as also then look for other sources of funding from outside the system. And the second phase will require extensive modeling of the funding option that we have chosen in order to see how sustainable that is, where would funds be required, and so on. What is clear is that government at the moment has got a policy of a bursary to support all those students who come from families whose income is not more than 350,000, which is the children of the working class and the poor. Those who fall outside that is something that the ministerial task team is considering, and of course, other non-fiscal sources will have to be identified as to how then those can be able to assist those deserving students but who do not fall within the framework of what government is covering at this point in time. Baie dankie, voorsitter.
Thank you, Minister. The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable King.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, I just want to ask as well,
This morning in the meeting, it was clearly stated that there is great concern when it comes to the sustainability of the funding model and how we are going to actually cover the 10.1 billion rand shortfall. So, Minister, you also said that it's a matter of robbing Peter to pay Paul in the meeting. So, Minister, is it not then sufficient to say that the fee-free higher education model is not sustainable for South Africa, given the fact that up to date, we still haven't changed the NEFSA Funding Act to be in line with the fee-free higher education model?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Thanks for the follow-up question from Honourable King. The reality that we face, and it's our point of departure, is that the state of our economy is bad. The resources that are flowing into the coffers of the state are far from what we would need to have. The whole of the government's budget is under pressure. That is what is important, and therefore, inevitably, funding for higher education would also be under pressure, just like the other funding considerations are under pressure. The sustainability of the model will depend largely on what creative mechanisms do we find within the constraints we have to actually sustain funding. But government has committed and has said it loud and clear. It's committed to continue funding deserving students and who are capable, who comes from the ranks of the working class and the poor. That still remains government's commitment. The issue of the shortfall is something, as I have said in response to Honorable Mahlatsi, that we are having discussions at the moment with the Minister of Finance, and the matter will have to revert very soon to the Minister's Committee on the Budget, because the sooner we are able to know how much we are able to support NSFAS next year, the better, so that the universities and the TVET colleges are able to plan better. Government and Cabinet is acutely aware of that, and we hope that we'll be able to settle this matter sooner. But what the Ministerial Task Team is doing is looking at 2022, but also beyond. We are looking at the next 3 to 5 years and even beyond to say what kind of a comprehensive student funding model we need and where can we creatively access resources to be able to support that. But the question of commitment to the children of the working class and the poor is something that government is firmly committed to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next follow-up will be asked by the Honourable Tambo.
Thank you very much, Chair. In view of the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic has severely impacted the post-schooling sector, particularly around matters related to access, and in view of the various lessons that can be drawn by this department from the experience during the 2021 academic year, and also noting the NSFAS will expect a 10 billion rand shortfall in student funding for the 2022 academic year. Other than increasing pass rates in order to accommodate budget cuts, which is the evident solution that has been drafted now, what plans does this department have to address the shortfall expected by NSFAS, if any, outside of commitments? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Honourable Minister.
Honourable House Chair, thank you to Honourable Tambo for the question. But I want to say that very clear. There's been no increase in pass rates that has been decided upon as we speak now. And also, I think that Honourable Tambo is being disingenuous, because I answered this question this morning and also earlier today to say what we are looking at in terms of possibilities of modifications to the guidelines for funding are not primarily driven by funding considerations, but they are driven by the necessity for students to be able, as many of them as possible, to finish their own studies in record time. That is what we are doing, and that is what we are actually committed to. I also did say, by the way, of course I've got to answer here this morning, that we are also still faced with enormous challenges as a system with the continuation of the COVID-19 pandemic, now facing the fourth wave, that still requires that we engage very closely with all the stakeholders so that we find collective solutions to the problems that we face, so that we are able, what we managed to achieve last year, by the way, to be able to finish the 2020 academic year as a result of this continuous engagement with all the stakeholders. Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last follow-up question will be asked by the Honorable Sukas.
Thank you, House Chair. Honorable Minister, COVID-19 disproportionately impacted women negatively, and the economic empowerment of women is often limited by pregnancy, and often crisis pregnancies interrupts their personal development goals. This challenge, combined with a lack of funding, impedes the economic advancement of adult women and their access to opportunities for further learning or access to skills development programs in critical sectors of the economy. Is there recognition that the more mature adult, especially women, when invested in, would achieve better results in completing studies? And is there a plan to include or target this category of women wanting to further their learning and thus improve their economic prospects?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. It looks like this is a new question, which is not exactly in line with the original question that has been asked about readiness for next year. But nevertheless, the Honourable Member is raising an important issue, which I must just say something about, the issue of women, and to ensure that women do not continue to be negatively affected by COVID-19 in the provision of education. I want to say, first of all, that our post-school education and training system has got an entity which was created originally, by the way, as a voluntary thing by universities, Higher Health, which is actually looking into areas of health and wellness for students in general, but in particular also looking at the issue of promoting gender equality and the fight against gender-based violence. That is very much part of our work. Also, I'm very proud to say that we want a department that has got a complete policy framework for gender equality and the fight against women's oppression in our sector, which has been welcomed by all of our institutions, and each institution is developing its own policies to advance and protect women, guided by this overall framework. So I am acutely aware, together with the department, of the dangers of women being disproportionately affected negatively by pandemics, and with the help of Higher Health and this policy framework, as well as something I referred to earlier, which is the ministerial task team that brings together all the stakeholders to ensure that no one is left behind, especially women. Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Members, we will now proceed to question number 359 that has been asked by the Honourable Sheikh Imam to the Minister of Human Settlements. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chair, and thank you, Honourable Sheikh Imam, for the question. Let me first indicate that in various consultations with all majority of our stakeholders, including the public, what has come through, it's not that entirely South Africans are saying we must stop provision of the BNG, what we know as RDP houses. There has been a call for various interventions in the portfolio, including that of service stands. And I must indicate with these interventions, it's because various citizens have different needs. You'd find that indigent communities, especially those who are elderly and those who are people living with disabilities and the most vulnerable, will continue to require that government provide the BNG, what we call the RDP houses. Now, with intervention and the adjustments of policy, we have started already to provide for what we call service sites, and quite a number of areas now already in provinces that have started to look into this, because we do acknowledge that there are South Africans who are already in a position to say what we need is a land with the services such as water, electricity, and sanitation, and therefore we can build for ourselves. So that's what we are doing. And indeed, as part of the work that we are doing, to develop and to move to transition towards a human settlement development bank, part of the work that we are doing is to ensure that the bank, as it comes to life, once the bills have been passed and ascended to, and it has been fully established in terms of the laws, to provide for loans of those who will be able to say we can be able to get a land and therefore build for ourselves. Thank you very much, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Minister, my understanding is that we have a problem, particularly at local government level, in terms of capacity to deliver these fully serviced sites. And this is what is hampering the success of the rollout of this particular project or program. Could you please advise what additional measures are being put in place to ensure that municipalities, that is local government, are more capacitated to be able to provide more serviced sites? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Thanks, Honourable Sheikh Imam. The work in terms of service sites is not only the responsibility of municipalities. Honourable Member will note that not all municipalities are actually having a developer status. So in the provision of human settlement, you will have some municipalities that have the capacity to be able to do that. And where there's no capacity, we work together with the provinces to be able to lead. So the provinces are actually the leader in terms of that. Where there is capacity within municipalities, we are able to actually translate that into municipalities to being able to provide that capacity. Again, Housing Development Agency, it's one of our entities that is able to assist us in terms of this area of work. But I do need to highlight that, yes, in my work and in the interaction with municipalities, we have found areas where you would find that there is capacity challenges, and also especially in the process of declaration of the areas in terms of settlements or even townships. We do find that sometimes within municipalities, especially around capacity on the planning, we do have challenges. But what we have done as the National Department is through our informal settlement grant, and also that we've developed a technical team that goes into the provinces and all into those municipalities to be able to support in terms of capacity to deliver on that particular service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Tseki.
Indeed, Minister, our policy is informed by a classical rule of from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. The question is as follows, Minister. How many service sites are already allocated to the people of South Africa? And what plans the HDA, which is the Housing Development Agency, has to fast-track the provision of these terms? You can Silenkov.
The Honourable Minister.
Naken samwastulo anhlaisa gore ne-explainela Honourable Tseki gore on the service sites, we currently have been able to do 10,855. As you know, that this is not an old program and a new program that has been, but compared to that, major part of that we've seen done
firstly in Gauteng and Free State, followed by KwaZulu-Natal, and other provinces are following. So that's where we can be able to give in terms of that. With regards to Housing Development Agency, what we do is partnering with the provinces where the provinces do not have capacity or are needing support, and then Housing Development Agency is able to provide that support. And also, as I indicated earlier, in terms of the municipalities, then we are able to. Together with the new board that has been appointed, we have agreed that we are going to capacitate HDA, make sure that we do have the technical capacity, because some of the capacity that we need in terms of project management, we do not have, but also looking in terms of those that we put in the provinces as regional heads and provincial heads to be in the level where they are able to assist the provinces and fast-track this service. This is one of the areas, together with the title deeds, that we will be paying attention to and assisting in the provinces and ensuring that Housing Development Agency is able to deliver on that service. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question will be asked by the Honourable Paul.
Thank you. Minister, over 13 million South Africans still live in informality. Despite the department announcing last year that they would be moving away from formal B&G houses towards rapid land release and site and service, your department did not manage to upgrade a single one of the 300 identified informal settlements to phase 3 as planned, and there's also been no shift from baseline with regards to the upgrading of the 1,500 informal settlements by the 2024 target. Delivery on social housing and rental units within priority development areas has also represented a 12% delivery rate in the past year. Minister, given the failure of this department to achieve some of these most basic targets, can you please provide us with details of your strategy to implement the recently announced rapid land release program in line with the ambitions of the planned Human Settlements Development Bank? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Chair, House Chairperson, and also Honourable Powell on the issue. I don't think these are basic targets, Honourable Member. If you look at the process of, for example, formalizing a settlement, an informal settlement, firstly, you've got to be able to go in, look at the engineering services that you have to bring, to be able to assess whether the settlement is sitting in an area, whether it's problematic or even a suitable place for settlement. You must identify who's the owner of the land, because we know some of these areas you find that people have actually put themselves, and other issues that once you move from that, then you have to go into the municipality, which is the area that I spoke to earlier when Honorable Zeki was talking about the issue of capacities within the municipality. I think it's Honorable Sheikh Imam, the issue of capacity in the municipalities, where the planning units within those municipalities to be able to say within this is what we must formalize as a settlement. So first thing, we've been engaging municipalities to be able to relax the conditions of formalization of settlements, because it is one of the tedious processes. But secondly, it puts burden on the same municipalities who do not have the resources to be able to meet some of the requirements they have put themselves. So that's the second thing. So it's not a simple process that you do. Then when you move from that, then you start saying, identifying these people who are there, whether they fall in the category of BNG, beneficiaries, or you can give them land, or you can actually, these are people who deserve to be in low-cost housing. That is another process. So just outlining, that's why I wanted to say, firstly, it's not a simple matter, as you are saying. It's a very tedious thing. And secondly, in terms of meeting the targets, yes, we acknowledge that our targets are not yet met, but we are putting mechanisms in place to be able to work together through our provinces and utilizing the district development model, because without working with the provinces, without working with the municipalities in an integrated planning manner and also in an integrated implementation manner, will not be able to resolve the issues of informal settlement. And I must indicate I must indicate, House Chairperson, the issue of informal settlements actually are a moving target. And that's why priority for us and our preference going forward, especially if it's not indigent communities, would want to give them service size because it reduces the burden, but it gives people to be able to start having where they can sit, where they can have an address, and where they can be able to say, this is where I belong. And you can give them title deeds, which becomes an asset in their hands. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. And the last supplementary question will go to the Honourable S.A. Putelezi. Is the Honourable Putelezi on the platform?
Thank you, House Chair. Can the Honourable Minister comment on the allegations that the database for the RDP houses waiting list is flawed and unreliable? What are the relevant details? Thank you, Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. I don't think these are allegations. It's what I've said as well as a minister. And this is not that it's completely flawed. Let me just take a member through and honorable members through. What has happened is that you'd find that a person is registered on the database HSS. And what happens is that we align a beneficiary to a project. So if it's a project in Leratong, for example, in Gauteng, and a beneficiary has been linked to that, when that project takes longer to finish, then the person remains on that database as having benefited and having aligned to a project, and whereas a person would be sitting without a house. So that's part of what we are trying to clean. And that's why we have publicly said our preference and our plan going forward is to digitize our beneficiary system, whereby even if Mamoloko goes and then can be able to capture their ID and look at saying, this is where I'm allocated, this project is going to end in this day, as part of promoting transparency, but also accountability, and it can give confidence on residents. Currently, some people are aligned to what we talked about earlier on as unfinished projects, and therefore that's what makes people think that it's unreliable. Yes, there's been some allegation in terms of saying people have been removed from the list and all those things, and we continue to interact with that and clean up the system based on the information we receive in communities. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. We'll now proceed to question number 316 that has been asked by the Honourable Sokacha to the Honourable Minister of Health. The Honourable Minister, are you taking the question, Honourable Deputy Minister?
Yes, Honourable House Chair. It's a World AIDS Day and our Minister is busy in a very far-flung area in Limpopo in called Chikungu with the Deputy President, so I will be taking the question. The answer to the question asked by Honourable Sokacha with regards to the mental health facilities, that the progress that has been achieved on the reported mental health facilities since the 2019-2020 financial year, funded from the Indirect Conditional Grant Health Infrastructure Revitalization Grant, is reported in the table that I'm just going to indicate. We are going to actually we have a list of facilities in the country who have been completed. Let me start with those that have been completed. In the Eastern Cape, Fort England Psychiatric Hospital is completed. Eastern Cape, another one, Komani Psychiatric Hospital, the beds configured and is completed, and the renovations have been done to accommodate the COVID-19 patients in that facility. In Dorangenza, 72-hour psychiatric adult chronic and gateway clinic phase 2 has been completed. In KwaZulu-Natal, Itindale upgrade of the psychiatric wards is also completed. In King Dinizulu, KwaZulu-Natal again, the upgrade of the psychiatric closed unit and Moth Hall completed. In Emmaus Hospital, a new acute psychiatric ward has been completed. In Limpopo, Letaba Hospital, upgrading of existing administration and psychiatric wards is also completed. In Mpumalanga, Emelo Hospital Phase 3, construction of the psychiatric wards and EMS unit block has been completed. In the Northwest, Bopelong Psychiatric Hospital Phase 1 and assets that were needed there put. The Phase 2 has been completed. Phase 2B has been completed, but Phase 3 has not been completed. It's an occupational therapy block, clinical psychiatric and social work unit, private wards, and emergency part. In the Northern Cape, Kimberley Hospital, the construction of the new mental health hospital has been completed. All our psychiatric units in the Western Cape are currently in a design phase and have not been completed. In the other provinces, we still also have other uncompleted processes. In Cecilia Makiwane, Eastern Cape, Gauteng, the Vescopis Specialized Mental Hospital not completed. In Limpopo, Tabamupu Specialized Mental Hospital not yet completed. Again, in Limpopo, Evushakeng Specialized Mental Hospital not completed. Mpumalanga is Kwamhlanga, that has not been completed. The rest have been completed. Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Sokacha.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Thanks, Honorable Deputy Minister, for your adequate response to my question. Now, Honorable Deputy Minister, what plans are in place to expedite the occupancy of mental ill patients' facilities? Thank you very much.
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair, and thank you, Honorable Sokacha, for the question. Normally, a completion of a facility is inclusive of the new equipment that was necessary, commissioning of that facility, and the training being done. Now, it is always going to as a package. It is rarely completed without this process being done. However, if then the completion in some of these facilities has been done outside the commissioning and the training and equipment, the procurement of the equipment is something that is started alongside the closer to the date of the completion of the facility and the commissioning thereof. It is therefore unlikely that there will be a significant lag of time between the completion and the occupation of the facility in the event the commissioning, the equipment, and the training was not done simultaneously. I would not be able to indicate which of those there might have been a difference in terms of completing the process simultaneously with the commissioning or the commissioning coming after the completion of the facility before the occupation of that facility. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. The second supplementary question will be asked from the Honorable Wilson.
Thank you. Deputy Minister, apart from 33% of South Africans having mental health challenges, there is no sustainable funding to assist with care and certainly not enough facilities to deal with the situation. Compounding the situation is it's one thing to finish a facility, but what happens thereafter? 5 more lives were lost in the Kairos Center in July and August this year, with neglect and starvation being cited. Desperate patients have run away and some have committed suicide as a result. Your department already faces billions of rands in medico claims and millions in legal fees, which have severely already affected health service provision. What, Deputy Minister, are you going to do to stop human rights violations in these facilities? And what will you do to avoid another Life Isidimeni incident? I thank you.
Honourable members, I want to remind you that a follow-up question is a follow-up question and not follow-up questions. Honourable Deputy Minister, you will respond.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair, and thank you to Honourable Wilson.
You are correct. When there was a life asset demand in the country, a concerted effort was done by the department to scan the whole country in regards to we should not have another asset demand, whether in Limpopo, KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape, or any part of the country. But you are well aware, Honorable Wilson, that the challenges in health, and it is something that we always have to collectively change. We talk about this also as a portfolio committee. When there are budget cuts, there are certain programs that get actually left behind, or the less and less budget. Mental health is one of them. And we need to collectively put that and to say, the more you actually get budget cuts and the more you tend to affect a program like mental health, the more you are going to have actually what you do have. So I would actually say it's a collective process, but it is actually embedded in the same area that we tend to affect the budget cuts on issues like mental health, infrastructure, and human resource when we do have. So I would not be able to give you an answer as is a collective effort of all of us to begin to prioritize and push mental health programs to the higher level of priorities of a department, or of this is a phenomenon in the whole world where we seem to be really pushing mental health programs to the back burner. It's a collective effort that we must also do as a country, as a nation in the world. Thank you.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Chirwa.
Thank you, House Chair. I'll be taking the question on behalf of Honourable Chirwa.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Honourable Deputy Minister, during the second wave of the outbreak of COVID-19 infections, the South African Society of Psychiatrists warned that there is a direct correlation between the rising levels of COVID-19 and more acute struggles with mental health amongst many South Africans, and that the department should plan for this upsurge in mental health related issues. What has your department done to ensure that mental health will be prioritized, particularly as the country moves from wave to wave of COVID infections? Thank you.
The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair, and thanks to the member asking the question on behalf of Honourable Chirwa. The picture is bigger than probably what the psychiatrist team looked into. We were actually having a meeting with healthcare workers. And actually it's another angle of some of the South Africans who must be looked after mentally, because they've actually been looking after our patients and they continue to see relatives and their own family members dying. But there's another new group of South Africans who we learned through discussions that children of healthcare workers through COVID have been more depressed, and we need to focus on that. They are saying, but mommy, why are you going to work when you just told us last night the person that you were looking after with COVID died? How long are you going to continue with this and therefore bringing home the So I want to say we are still auditing that as a department. Even before COVID, as Honourable Wilson was raising, we were behind in terms of prioritizing mental health programs. With COVID, we have had more than what we have in terms of the package of how much to actually support. There are people before COVID who probably were not having any mental health illnesses, but they do now have due to COVID. So we are auditing and saying, where do we start? Where is the most affected? Is it our healthcare workers? Is it the children of our healthcare workers? It is. So that process is on, and I may not be able to indicate now as we are actually auditing where do we start, who actually gets and benefits on the focus first than the other one. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. And
thank you. And then the next supplementary question, the last one on this question, will be asked by the Honourable M.D. Schlengwa.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Deputy Minister, according to the analysis by experts, the country expenditure on mental health is only 48%, thereof is on specialized psychiatry, health service, and it seems that only about 8% is allocated to primary health service. Considering the needs that exist in primary health care to attend, to expand on mental health services and ensure that rural communities have access to such service. What steps have been taken by the department to expand on the mental health service at the primary health care level in specific? Thank you.
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair and the Honorable Shengwa. There has been a plan to actually make the department to realize that psychiatric support, mental health programs are not at a quaternary or tertiary level, but at a very basic district and primary health care focus. It is a program that not many of us are aware. The GBV, the gender-based violence that we have had, has also created a big dent. I mean, the unfair labor systems in the country where women are generally having unpaid work at home, it's a part of dependency that creates a lot of mental health that we don't talk about. So you have to intervene at that level. There's quite a lot of people who otherwise would not even come forward and indicate or declare their mental health status, yet to do. So it actually talks to primary health care, as Honorable Marshengwa is talking, identifying it and actually creating resources. It's an advocacy that we need to do, not just in the department, in the whole world, because this issue of gender-based violence, unemployment, inequality creates and breeds mental health illnesses among societies. Now, until and unless you actually remove and improve on issues of inequality, on the abuse and oppression of women, on issues of poor education, poor access, you are going to make very little strides in the improvement of mental health illnesses in the country. I may actually end up there, Honorable Chair, and to the member. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. Honorable members, we will now proceed to question number 325 that has been asked by the Honorable Nodada to the Minister of Basic Education. The Honorable Minister.
No, thank you very much, Chair. Let me just thank Member Nodada for the question, but also thank you, Chair. Chair, as a department, we use what we call SASMs, which is our education management systems, where we collect individual learner enrollments, and within it we have LURIDs, and LURIDs helps us to track learners. So what LURIDs does, it will be able to give us information on learners who registered in 2020, and we are able to compare it in 2021. So which means in 2020, we will not have comparative studies which are systematic to say we have so many learners that have dropped in the system. But what happens on a daily level? Schools and class teachers use what we called class registers. And those class registers help teachers to understand or even track learners who have really been chronically or who have been absent for a long period of time. Then schools are able to track learners at a school level. If a learner has been absent, to say, this is the number of learners that have been, this is a learner that has been absent, and follow up through different methods. It could be through peer groups, through other students, or the teacher themselves going to the family to check where the learner is. But at this stage, we should differentiate between dropout and absenteeism, because we are not definitely sure that a learner who had not come in February this year has dropped out, because dropout is a permanent factor that children are no longer coming back. But if it's absenteeism, it could be a child that for different reasons was not ill, was not well, did not come to school maybe for the entire 2020, but is going to come back in 2021. And those are not dropouts. But we will be able, in the first term of 2021, say how many learners have we lost in terms of comparative studies of saying how many learners are registering in 2021 who were part of 2020 internal grades, excluding your grade 12. So we will only be able to give you information after the first term of 2021. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Nodada.
Thank you so much, Chair. Minister, according to the Department of Basic Education reports, in 2018, there were just 152,000 dropouts. In 2020, there were over 557,000 dropouts. And this year, we're sitting at close to 400,000 reported dropouts, which exacerbates youth not in education, employment, or training. Worst of all, these dropout learners they end up forming part of the expanded youth unemployment of 76%. You further exclude this analysis when you do your matric pass rate to present an inflated matric pass rate to the country. Why are these dropouts not factored into the matric pass rate? And will you be willing to take the country into confidence on the real matric pass rate and what your department will do about the worrying dropout rate? As they do it in elections, there are those that are eligible to vote, there are those that actually turn out to vote, and then there are results. So why is this not done for matric results as well? Thank you so much.
The Honourable Minister.
Now, Chair, I can ask Mr. Honourable Nodada to wait. We are going to release reports on the results of matriculants on the 20th of January. Then he can repeat his old story around inflated matric results. It's his old song. But the point I'm making about dropouts, you can only compare statistics of registrations of 2020 in 2021. When you compare the registration figures to say in 2020, we had 1.2 million learners. In 2022 or in 2021, we have so many. Now, all the figures he's bringing, I don't know where he will get them from because Luritz functions that way. But the story about confidence, the 20th is coming, Babu Nodada. You can repeat your old story around matric results. I thought we were talking about dropouts and say a dropout will be a permanent feature. But absenteeism, which we are able to trace daily, is not dropouts in terms of our definition. So,
the next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Adouans.
No, thank you very much, House Chair. And thank you very much, Minister, for your response. I don't want to sound like an old record, but can you just respond on the numerous factors which contribute to learner dropouts? And in order to address the dropout challenge, the different casual factors should be mitigated. What is the department doing to respond to the different causes of learner dropping out? Thank you, Chair and Minister.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister.
No, thank you very much, Member Adonis. And that's a very constructive way of analyzing dropouts and what the issues are. And fortunately, the information on the reasons for learners to drop out are documented in your Statistics South Africa and all sorts of researches. And factor number one that comes from the research is that normally it's your socioeconomic factors where there's perhaps poor parental control or guidance or juvenile delinquency in the area. The second factor, which has been cited outside economic and social factors, has been, especially at your grade 10, grade 11, it's when young people find it difficult to cope with academic performances where you find that there's lots of repetition rates in grade 11, they get discouraged. And we've tried to put quite a number of measures to deal with that because that one affects us directly. To say, what is it that we do to make sure that kids don't find it difficult to transit from your senior phase to a FET phase, because that's where we have huge dropout rates, and those are caused by academic reasons. But some are really, as I say, youth delinquency, as I say, economic factors, substance abuse. But what we are focusing on as a sector is what is it that we do to improve our performance in the foundation phase, your intermediate phase, which also is a hump for our learners, and more important in the senior phase. And that's where our focus is in terms of trying to manage the high levels of dropouts amongst learners, which are normally academic at that senior phase and not in other phases, because, Chair, we have almost 99% attendance in your basic education up to grade 9. lots of learners drop out after 10 when there's now issues of juvenile delinquency and academic challenges. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Mashabela. The Honourable Mashabela. Is there a follow-up? Yes, Honourable Member.
She's having a network problem, so we are going to give it to another member. You can take another one, then afterwards we'll come in.
Thank you. The Honourable Sukas.
House Chair, I understand Ms. Sukas has also got a connectivity issue. May I put the question on her behalf? Thank you. Thank you, House Chair. Honourable Minister, school dropout is a complex social phenomenon that requires an integrated approach from civil society and government departments. In light of the economic distress and societal dislocation caused by COVID-19, does the Minister support her colleague, the Honourable Deputy Minister, who in an article in Business Tech dated 18 November stated that the new Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill, which, quote, is expected to hold parents more accountable than under current laws. This is being done exclusively by increasing the criminal penalty under the Act. This criminalisation is not consonant in the ACDP's view with our Constitution or the Child Law. Will the Minister rather establish a working group including all social structure departments, academics and NGOs to study the phenomenon and make recommendations rather than criminalising parents in this regard? Thank you, Deputy Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Swart. The Honourable Minister.
No, Chair, I fully agree with Mr. Swart to say the question of learner dropout is really bigger than the sector, is bigger than parents. It's something that needs societal interventions. We even ourselves looking to say in certain communities there's very low levels of dropout rates. So it also has to do with the culture, the social culture in different communities, that children and parents find it normal not to really attend school. Where parents come in, because again our research says besides your academic challenges, it's also parental guidance, so that when a child does not go to school, parents must make it their responsibility to report the matter so that it can be dealt with. Because if a child does not come, you are not sure that parents have relocated. That's why the child is not here. Now the school has to take trouble of trying to trace the child and see what are the reasons that have forced the child not to come to school. So he's right that it is a very complex social, economic, and academic factor that needs all of us to work together. The President in particular has, even during the Teachers Award, said to us, this must be one of the priorities that we look at to stem out a dropout rate. Mr. Notata is right. If we have lots of young people dropping out of school, it creates more social problems down the line. So it's something that we have to agree with. But I also agree that criminalizing parents may be too harsh, but they have to also come to the party and support both their learners and the schools to support our children to stay longer in schools. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Is there a follow-up question now from the EFF? Please proceed.
Thank you, House Chair. The question that is being forwarded is, Minister, it is reported that as many as 750,000 children dropped out of school during the pandemic, and that school attendance is the lowest it's ever been in 20 years. In a country engulfed in unemployment and lack of skills, this is a tragedy. Do you know whether the children who dropped out, who dropped out are? And what are your plans to get them back to school? If they don't come back to school, what will be the short-term, medium impact of this massive dropout? Thank you, Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
No, the figures shocked me because I've never heard about them. I'm hearing from the EFF that we've lost almost 700,000. I really don't know. But as I said earlier, Chair, we are able to give a scientific account on dropouts when we compare apples with apples. We will be able in the first term to say in 2020 how many learners had registered, in 2021 of those that registered in 2020, how many have remained. The fact that the 700,000, it's another story. But what also surprised us as sector, Chair, in 2019, when we compared 2019 to 2020, we discovered that we actually had more learners in 2021 as compared to 2019. So we'll only be able to say how many learners have dropped out. And I've mentioned to members, that's one of the most serious challenges that we confront as a sector, especially as I say, if you read our statistics, dropout rates happen in big numbers at the FET phase after the senior phase. And the reasons have been cited. It's teenage, it's juvenile delinquency, it's social factors, it's environmental challenges, but also academic challenges. And the figures of 700, I'll be interested to know where EFF got it, because we don't have that figure. We have not as yet compared the 2020 statistics to know how many learners have not returned. So I can't go look for children that I don't know if they are absent or if they've dropped out, but we will be able to really, as annually we do it, give statistics as to how many learners have been returned, how many learners have dropped out, and therefore what measures are going to be put in place. But the figure doesn't sound right. I've never heard about it, even as a minister. I don't know where EFF gets it.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, question number 348 has been asked by the Honourable Mashabela to the Minister of Basic Education. The Honourable Minister.
No, yes, Chair. In terms of our reports from both Gauteng and Northwest, when Johannesburg Water announced that there are going to be water cuts, the Gauteng province put measures in place to make sure that the water cuts don't interrupt the exams. And according to our reports, there were no interruptions with the exams in Gauteng. The Northwest part, I've checked with colleagues in Northwest, there were no water cuts which would have affected the writing of matric results. But in Gauteng, when there were water cuts, measures were put in place, and therefore there were no disruptions to the writing of exams by our matric learners. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. The Honourable Mashabela. Yes, you may proceed with the...
Thank you. Thank you so much, House Chair. Minister, while the Department of Education in Gauteng indicated that schools would not be affected in that province as most of them had boreholes, the reality of the matter is that learners who had to prepare for exams do not stay at schools. They go back to communities without water. To what extent has this affected their ability to prepare adequately for exams?
The Honourable the Minister.
Chair, from our reports of what we are able to know, which will be what would have happened in schools, there were no effects of the water cuts onto the matriculants. But whether at home, because of water cuts, water had not been collected enough, will not be able to know, because I wouldn't know how communities and homes had prepared for those water cuts. I stay in Johannesburg. We had collected water in different ways to make sure that we can cope with the 54 hours of water cuts. And I would assume that families also did the same. So I will know how different families in their homes would have put measures in place to make sure that the water cuts don't affect their children. So we wouldn't be able to know. We can only know what happened in schools.
Point of order.
Honourable, I didn't see the name.
It's Mente, Chair, the whip of the issue.
Okay. Proceed, Honourable Mente. What's your point of order?
No, the minister is referring to a question that asked about home. We're not asking about how the homes prepared for 50. We are asking schools, basic education schools, how did they prepare themselves for the water cuts? Because children must be at school. It's not about how did parents prepare water. Why would we ask about parents at home to the Minister of Basic Education?
Okay, thank you very much. The Honorable Minister, do you want to respond to that point of order?
I think if member had listened properly, when I started responding, I said Gauteng schools did prepare and put measures in place to make sure that the disruptions or the water cuts don't affect them. In instances where there would have been effects in terms of sanitation, they said they brought mobile toilets, they brought potable water. So I said the provinces had put in place alternative measures. As a result, at a school level, the water cuts did not affect matriculants. That's the answer I gave.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We proceed to the next follow-up questions asked by the Honorable Siwela. Honorable Siwela. EK.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairperson. Hello, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yebo, Tatana.
Yeah. Chairperson, thank you for the opportunity and greetings to the Minister, and thank you for the response. Chair, the Minister has responded adequately to the question and also covered what would have been my follow-up question. Thank you.
The next follow-up question will come from Honorable Notata.
Thank you so much, Chair. In order for us to fix the problems in basic education, Minister, I think we must acknowledge the problems and not run away when we give you statistics. We don't just dream about these. These are people's real life and faces. During the 2020 presentations, during your 2020 presentation on the state of readiness of schools, Minister, you indicated that there are no schools with a water crisis. However, over 358 schools still have had access to water till date. Over 2,111 schools still have pit toilets, yet the department has failed to use 1.1 billion of infrastructure meant to eradicate these infrastructure challenges. Furthermore, there are still 7,237 schools without adequate fencing in South Africa. Given the fact that these are infrastructural challenges and there's a rise in terms of kidnapping in schools, gender-based violence generally in South Africa, when will all schools have adequate fencing to ensure the safety and security of learners attending school?
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
I not that. We tend to tell and talking at Tetwanga. Kutatwa goguti water cuts as a Gauteng ziba affected Janabandwan. Without say fence New York in Dow. There's statistics was per they are going to start good. So I promised you in the group, in the study, in the portfolio committee, that I'll give you a full report of statistics about where sanitations have been delivered, where there are gaps, where there are fences, and all the stories that we have. But I just think, Chair, I will find it difficult. Because not that to tell kidnappings, tell Mafuni kidnappings is also. So I really want to stop at that. So I'll give him the answers if he wants. And I promised him an answer within 7 days on all these stories he's repeating. He's repeating the same things he raised in the portfolio committee. And I promised him a full report. And the kidnappings is a new one. So I can also answer if he wants stories about kidnappings in schools.
Thank you. We proceed to the last follow-up question to be asked by the Honorable Ngobo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I would wanted to say that the question has been, my follow-up question has been answered by the Honorable Minister Mutsaha. Thank you very much.
And that was the last follow-up question from this question 348. We now proceed to question 317, asked by the Honorable Manganye, to the Minister of Social Development. The Honorable the Minister. Honorable Zulu.
Corner Chair.
Okay, you may proceed to question 317. Yes.
Yes, Chairperson, thank you very much. And I do want to indicate that I've got a bit of a network problem. So if it disappears, it's because the weather is not looking very good on our side. However, in response, Chairperson, to the question by Usis Manganye, Honorable Manganye, I must acknowledge that crime in South Africa has occupied a center stage on the public agenda and is unacceptably high, and its high levels of crime, especially serious and violent crime, results in people of South Africa, especially the vulnerable, living in fear and feeling unsafe. I further acknowledge, Chairperson, that the gangsterism in particular is one of the social ills in our society. And I do want to raise this issue particularly to say to the young people of South Africa, there is no glory in gangsterism. There is no glory even in families when some of your family members belong to gangsters. There's no glory in calling yourselves a 26 or 28 or whatever the case might be. And we have to do everything we can, both as government in terms, again, of strengthening our systems of safety and security, but more importantly, it's about deglorifying in our communities gangsterism. My department developed the anti-gangsterism strategy, which its outcome is aimed at providing strategic direction in the prevention and management of gangsterism in secure care centers and society at large. And I do want, Chairperson, to also indicate that when it comes to issues of safety and security, and in gangsterism in particular, we work together with the Department of Police SAPS, we work together with the Department of Justice, and I'm not just talking about myself as a minister and the ministers, but expect that our departments would step up in supporting our communities in the fight against gangsterism. But it is also about supporting those NPOs and NGOs to ensure that your CPFs and your community-based organizations have to be able to step up and watch out for the behavior of children. But it's not just about the behavior of children, it is about the adults who lure these children into gangsterism because of the supposedly glory of being a member of a gangster, but it's also got something to do with other social ills, such as drug abuse and alcohol abuse. The strategy that the anti-gangsterism strategy that we have developed as a department further intends to empower and capacitate children, youth at risk and in conflict with the law, staff and parents on prevention and early intervention information. And again, I do want to say, Chairperson, that we might have all these good plans and good strategies. It is about working together with communities that we can be able to succeed. Based on the above objective, the outcomes of the implementation of anti-gangsterism includes elimination of practices of gangsterism in secure care centers and society at the societal level, empower children, youth, parents and communities with ability to identify early signs of gangsterism, and also resilient children, and creating a conducive environment for the children. I need to emphasize that all our interventions and efforts must be impactful and change the lives of the people we serve, likewise with the implementation of the anti-gangsterism strategy. Having said that, Chair, the impact is something that can be measured after some time, especially in our cases where we deal with soft issues. In this case, an impact evaluation study will have to be commissioned to determine the impact of the implementation of the DSD's anti-gangsterism strategy. This can be done after a strategy has been implemented over a period of 3 years, that is 2024 to 2025. The focus of the strategy has been extended to include identified high-risk districts. I must, however, indicate that the expected impact of the implementation of the anti-gangsterism strategy is to reduce and eliminate gangsterism in our society and in the controlled environment, DSD residential facilities that cater for children and youth. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Memanganye.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Minister, thank you for the answer that you have given, but I do want to have a snapshot of something. One of the major problem in our society is the disintegration of the family unit and the community cohesion to create a conducive environment for the growth of our children, as you have already alluded, Chairperson. In our African, we used to say in African, ngwana sejo wa tlhakanelwa. So I know you missed some of my Tswana. It means it takes a village to raise a child. So, Minister, what initiative is the department undertaking to strengthen the families? I heard you loud and clear when you addressing the issue of children. Thank you, Minister. And thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Memanganye. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and I fully agree with Sis Jane, Honorable, that it takes a village to raise a child. I was in Cape Town at some point when we were talking to children, and we were talking to children who were being assisted with capacity building in particular. And we said it takes a village to raise a child. And one of the children there stood up and says, where is this village that you people are talking about? There are no villages anymore. So we had to explain to the children that it is a saying, it is an African saying that must always be taken into consideration, because even if you are in towns, there might not necessarily be a village, but there are streets, there are communities, there are people who live in those communities. And it is the responsibility of those communities to be supportive of each other. And in particular, parents must also continue to support each other. And children must not feel like when they're being corrected by other people they don't know, end up saying, no, this one is not my parent, and therefore he or she has got no right to say anything. The family is the core of society and is integral to the general well-being of individuals in relation to their psychosocial, emotional, physical, and spiritual and economic needs. A family is also a cradle from which the value system, ethics, and norms of our society are transmitted and preserved. And while having said that, on the other hand, Chairperson, we also need to be aware of the fact that family in today and the description of family today might not necessarily be the same as it was maybe 30, 40 years ago. And as South Africa, we must also wake up to that reality of the new families that we talk about today. The Department of Social Development has developed programs that promote healthy family life, strengthening families and family prevention, a framework on positive values, an integrated parenting framework, fatherhood strategy, and I'm very happy, Chairperson, to see that there's many fathers who are rising not only to talk about the issue of gender-based violence, but fathers who are also demanding that they be included in the well-being of their children, even if they don't live with their children. Albeit the number is still very small, we need to do everything to support fatherhood and the fatherhood strategy. Teenage parenting programs we have. And at this point, Chairperson, also I do want to indicate that one of the horrifying things that we are experiencing is the teenage pregnancy, but it's below teenage now. I don't know what kind of a man or what kind of man would make a 10-year-old, 12-year-old, and 14-year-old pregnant. Families must stand up and community must stand up, because that is statutory rape, and a person who does that must be arrested. We also have youth development programs, family preservation programs.
Siyabonga.
Ngiyabonga, Chairperson. Ngibonga mina.
The Honorable Mrs. Opperman.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Minister, while reported cases of rape, violent riots, and also hostage holding of staff inside child and youth care centers are still prevalent, what results have there been since the implementation of DSD's secure care anti-gangsterism strategy in CYCCs that indicates a decline in gangsterism and violent behavior in secure care facilities? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member, for that, Mr. Honorable Opperman, for that question. Yes, to a very large extent, the numbers have reduced, but we do not have to lower our guard because of that, because as you are very much aware, some of the children are in those centers because they're coming from broken families, and therefore the empowerment of the staff and the capacitation of the staff, but also ensuring that within those institutions that we take care of, issues of security must be taken care of. The workers in those centers must feel safe. I think that to a very large extent, if we were to make comparisons to a few years ago and to now, we think that we have seen an improvement. But I don't think that it is adequate. I don't think that it is enough. Of course, some of the challenges we face is the fact that when there are budget cuts, it means that some of the plans that we have for these centers are reduced. But at the same time, we believe that if we have programs, particularly that focus on the children that are in those areas and help them with the necessary education, help them with the necessary empowerment, keep them occupied with things that are positive, that can make them see the future. I think that is much more important than anything else. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Ms. Mokhoto.
Speaker, Honorable Aris, I will take that question.
Proceed, ma'am.
Minister, as you are aware, the drugs and gangsterism walk hand in hand. The reality of the country is that we don't have public rehabilitation centers. We only have private rehabilitation centers. And that means that people that don't have money, automatically their children are excluded. And that means that the children get lost to society. And there's also no post-drug rehabilitation center. Minister, drugs are a widespread problem in society, and drug use penetrated schools even, making learning and teaching a difficult task, a difficult exercise. What practical programs have you undertaken with the Department of Education to deal with the widespread use of drugs in school? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Aris, and I agree with you. The public rehabilitation centers are far and wide and very few. And also the post-drug centers, we do have them, but again, in my view, considering the challenge and the impact of drug abuse and drug use, that's why I'm saying they are far and few, but we do have them. And of course, it is true that those that have the money, they take their children or any other person who has got a drug problem into drug rehabilitation, where they pay, sometimes they pay exorbitant prices for that. So firstly, as a Department of Social Development, working together with the Department of Health, working together with the Department of Education, we do need to have a coordinated effort. I know that in terms of the Department of Education and Department of Basic Education, we've had some instances where even the police have to go and search in schools, and then you also have an uproar about why must the children be searched and so forth. We believe that the issue of dealing with drugs must start first and foremost also with the drug lords and the people who are selling the drugs. And until such time that government focuses on cutting the numbers and reducing the numbers and cutting that entire value chain of drug abuse, we will keep on having systems that are dealing with the problem post. We need to be able to ensure that collectively as government, private sector, as well as communities, work towards getting rid of drug lords in our communities. The also second important thing is for us as a department, we'll continue to support those NPOs and NGOs who are doing something practical on the ground. We depend on them also to a very large extent of ensuring that we get rid of drugs. But the drugs in schools, in my view, the drugs do not necessarily walk to the school. The drugs walk with the children from homes, from streets, from dark corners. They walk with the drugs, they get the drugs. So our approach is also to say that from a security point of view, the hand must begin to be much more stronger in terms of dealing and cleaning the streets of drugs and those that are selling the drugs. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The last follow-up question will be raised by the Honorable Swart.
Thank you, House Chair. Thank you, Honourable Minister. The ACDP appreciates your focus on healthy families as the core of society and on social interventions in fighting gangsterism. We need not only social interventions, but also criminal justice interventions. The preamble to the Prevention of Organised Crime Act recognizes the pervasive presence of criminal gangs in many communities is harmful to the well-being of these communities, and that it is necessary to criminalize participation in or promotion of criminal gang activities. And Chapter 4 sets out offences relating to criminal gang activities. Honourable Minister, the ACDP believes that despite the provisions of this Act, POCA, the National Anti-Gangsterism Strategy may not be showing the necessary progress given the high levels of crime that you indicated and the pervasive presence of criminal gangs. Would the Honourable Minister agree that one, SAPS and the MPA should make greater use of POCA, and two, that there may be a need to review and amend POCA, particularly relating to gangsterism as part of the National Anti-Gangsterism Strategy? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Swart, and I fully agree with you, and I fully agree in particular when you're speaking to the issue of POCA and the review thereof, and also the pooling of our resources. I think one of the things that we have consistently said as government is that we need to improve our coordination efforts and especially the implementation, in this particular case, the implementation of POCA, but also more important is about improving from a justice system point of view and making sure that some of the people who are caught on the streets are not taken for granted that, no, it was just a minor offense of a small-time drug. The bottom line is that it starts with very young people, starting with one little thing, growing into something bigger. And young people look at each other and think that they've got something to gloat about, something to be proud of when they are part and parcel of these gangsters, and also part and parcel of the value chain and the system of the selling of drugs. So I fully agree with you, Honourable Swart, and thank you for your contribution.
Thank you, Honourable Minister, and thank you to all the ministers in the cluster for making today's session a success. We thank you very much. The time allocated for questions, honourable members, has expired. Outstanding replies will be printed on Hansard. The Secretary will read the first order of the day.
Consideration of request for permission in terms of Rule 2864C
to inquire into amending other provisions of the Copyright Act number 98 of 1978, interim report of Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry on Copyright Amendment Bill.
Thank you very much. I will just say it's not only the first, but it's also the last, and I will call the Honorable Nkosi to introduce the report. The Honorable Nkosi from the virtual platform. I know that the weather is not good where people are, especially in Gauteng. He's still online. Honorable Nkosi, it's your opportunity now. You are still here. Just unmute yourself and speak.
He's a sleepist.
Ready for? Are you going to give the report? Oh, mevrou Stein, nee man. Dit kan nie so gebeur nie. Ons werk nie so nie. Honorable Nkosi, Chief Whip, am I assisted? The report need to be introduced before there can be declarations.
Second.
He is on the platform.
This gadget is broken. His gadget is broken, and it's been broken for a long time.
We know that the weather in Gauteng is not good, so I'm not going to penalize anyone.
I just request 2 minutes so that we can just get the report from him. No, what? I'm 13 hours when.
Chief Whip, thank you for your report. No, please switch off your mic if you want to speak to them. Yeah, you can speak to them outside the mic.
Hello.
Thank you very much, mevrou Stein. You can maar nou sit as
So how do I go in now?
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so
okay, proceed, Buduma.
Thank you very much. One would actually then agree that we will actually then be presenting the report, Honorable Speaker, and the House at large. Thank you very much. The report is presented. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you very much. We do have a request for declarations. The GA.
I know, as the former mayor of Ekurhuleni, the Honourable Nkosi is still shocked that they lost it. And that's why he was taking so long to find himself. It's going to be a very hard and long 5 years for him in that municipality. House Chairperson, this bill before us, the Copyright Amendment Bill, is one that has a beginning dating back more than 4 years and one which seemingly has no end. A trip down memory lane is important for this House and those to the right of me, as the reason that we are in this mess is because of them. One which has created uncertainty, cost investment, and has bogged down the committee's time for far too long because they are unwilling to hear, listen, and learn. For an organization that claims that they live and that they lead, they have so far been unable to lead themselves out of this self-imposed cul-de-sac. In 2019, in a pre-election gimmick, the ANC rushed to vote on this bill in Parliament so that they could claim that they are doing something for artists and performers, and this is the first big mistake. This bill is so much more than just that. Be that as it may, the ANC rammed the bill through Parliament despite all of the DA's warnings of procedural irregularities, threats to investment, and constitutional problems. The DA then petitioned the President, pointing out all of the concerns we highlighted to his ANC colleagues. Thankfully, the President agreed and sided with the DA and ditched his party line on the bill, sending it back to Parliament, somewhat humiliating for them. But this was only half of the battle won. The President, like the DA, knows that this is a bad bill to begin with. However, you can't unscramble a proverbial legislative egg once the process has begun. The bill came back to the committee to deal with the President's concerns, which at first the ANC wanted to reject. No doubt they were not happy that their President was more alive to the problems in the bill than they were. Shortly after, ANC MPs spectacularly climbed down from their opposition to their own President after Luthuli House no doubt intervened and gave them a clip around the ear. Turning our attention to permission that the committee seeks from this House, some of the changes we seek are in fact points that have been raised and date back to 2018. If only you had listened then. But here we are. For 3 years, they have steadfastly refused to be entertained, but now are being entertained only after the pressure has been brought to bear on this committee by members of the public and interested parties. And we really want to say well done and thank you to them. However, the big problem that still remains is the retention of fair use. If ever there was a party willing to bend to the will of big business and foreign interests, it has to be the ANC. The insistence on fair use, which is an American concept, how ironic, and has been punted by the likes of Google and other special interest groups, will rip the heart and soul out of the creative industry in South Africa. The ANC have tap danced to their master's tune and seem unwilling to change direction, and only time will tell whether this is the case and why this is the case, but I certainly have my suspicions. The DA invites the public and interested organizations to continue to engage with the committee and MPs from all political parties. All of this pressure that you have applied so far has brought the ANC to its knees and to this point. The DA will continue to look forward to those submissions that will be made on these points as we seek permission to advertise, and we will continue to impose the inclusion of fair use to ensure that our local content creators are protected and rewarded for their incredible talent. The DA supports the report.
Thank you very much. The EFF.
The party of special interests.
Can I go, Chairperson? Okay. Thank you, Chairperson. I don't think anybody can disagree with the notion that we must extend the scope of this report, and thereby capturing each and every submission that is made by the actual creative industry itself. It is our role as lawmakers and it's our role as legislators. And it is unfortunate that it lies upon us as legislators and lawmakers to make the final decision. To say that this is an important bill is an understatement, as it seeks to correct the many injustices that we have seen, where creators create incredible works, some used continuously abroad, only to die having not redeemed any of the royalties owed to them, leaving no legacy for their families. We have seen many artists pass and their families left desolate purely because there is no law or policy that truly speaks to them, leaving a legacy for themselves and their families. It is an injustice that we have so many sectors, and yet the one that is hardest to succeed in is the most shortchanged. How much of our works are used abroad to this day? And yet the families of those who created them are poor and hopeless in 2021. Being part of the process of making sure that we as a committee do due diligence to the creatives in this country has been daunting. And it's been more daunting because we have set with a legacy of what was done in the 5th Parliament, and now we have to make the final decision. This is a very intricate bill. It's a bill that is taking its toll emotionally because you want to assist those who need assistance the most. It shouldn't be that creators in the film, dance, and music industry who work tirelessly on their craft are still without any law that truly protects them, and that their works are used without any royalties. It is important that we expedite this legislation as it is long overdue, but it will only work if done correctly. And therefore, as the EFF, we do pledge all members in the creative industry to put their submissions, to make sure that their voices are heard, to get us to speak to us even privately. It does not matter, as long as your voice is heard and as long as we communicate what you have asked us to communicate, because at the end of the day, we don't stand to benefit, but it is you, your industry, that stands to benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. The IFP. The IFP.
Madam Chairperson, the provision of this of the copyright amendment bill, already introduced some years back, has been a long and highly polarized matter. The critical need for the bill cannot be more emphasized, as the outdated 1978 Copyright Act is inconsistent with the digital era and there's been a great outcry to amend the bill. On consideration of the interim report, the IFP wished to state from the outset that the long delay in finalizing the bill has been a great injustice, technical in nature, and we do support the view that legal certainty in this field of intellectual property is of critical importance. We do not wish the Amendment Act to be tangled up in court cases, further prolonging legal certainty. However, it is inconceivable that the President took more than 13 months to send the bill back to Parliament due to constitutional reservations on the bill. This delay simply cannot be accepted. Were it not for the action of civil society organizations threatening legal action, forcing the President to make a decision, we would, in all probability, still be waiting on the President to make a decision. The delay has been a great travesty. We have considered the President's letter concerning the specific reservations on the bill and Parliament's way forward regarding the committee's role and powers in further amending the bill. The further public justify the committee's contention that certain sections in the Act require further amendments beyond the current amendments. We understand the nature of these amendments will require further public consultations. As is clear from the many public hearings, public input is critical to ensure legal certainty and to strike a fine balance protecting creative and ensuring that researchers and the public, especially vulnerable in assessing created as the agent need to ensure that the parliamentary process is no longer delayed. That advertising of this section in specific be attended to immediately, and that we ensure this bill is finalized as a matter of urgency. The IFP supports they accepted and they accept the interim.
Thank you. We proceed to the FF Plus.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. The Freedom Front Plus is deeply concerned about the multiple errors and oversights in the responses from the Minister and the Parliamentary Legal Advisor to the Committee. In addition, the response from the Minister also explicitly drew from advice given by persons who could be considered to be partial stakeholders who continue to be engaged as experts to assist both the Committee and the Minister, thereby lending an unacceptable bias in these responses and in the further processing of the bill. As a result, these responses run contrary to the goal originally set for the bill of advancing the interest of South African creators of copyright works. These responses misread the detrimental impact of the bill on creators and owners of copyright works, amongst others. With their insistence to continue with the fair use clause, most of the expanded exceptions and the contract override clause, and that they do not deal with the omission of extending existing legal mechanisms to help copyright owners against any infringement of their new exclusive rights of distribution and communication to the public. The department did not present a proper socio-economic impact assessment of the totality of the effect of the bill on the creative sector. Although the term bad law is not necessarily unconstitutional, might apply here, bad law is in fact flawed and deceives the purpose of such law to the disadvantage of those who seem to protect it. If legislation as it stands is passed by Parliament on the current Copyright Amendment Bill 2017 and the Performance Protection Amendment Bill of 2016, it will certainly result in more delay for years due to the inherent flaws that both the Minister and Parliamentary Legal Advisors now admit to exist. These flaws need to be rectified. The Freedom Front Plus will support urgently needed reform of South Africa's copyright and performance protection laws. The Freedom Front Plus supports the report. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you. We proceed now to the ACDP.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, the ACDP supports this report, and we appreciate that this is a very complex bill and has come a very long way since the last Parliament via the Presidency and now back to the Portfolio Committee. We also appreciate the controversy and concerns about the Fair Use Clause, which seems to be the most contentious issue with this bill. The ACDP appreciates the fact that the concerns have been or are being addressed and that amendments will now be added to the bill and that the bill will then be re-advertised for public comment. The ACDP looks forward to considering these submissions as well as the socio-economic impact study that should also be presented with the bill. One obviously needs to avoid litigation on this issue relating to constitutionality, and so we look forward to the further deliberations on this bill to find a legally compliant and constitutionally compliant bill. I thank you.
Thank you. The UDM? Okay. ATM? Good. NFP? AIC? COPE? PAC? Al-Jama? The ANC.
Merry Christmas. Thank you, House Chair. Merry Christmas to you also, Honourable McPherson. The ANC believes that creative artists are a critical component of driving our developmental growth path and building an inclusive economy. The Copyright Amendment Bill seeks to ensure that we strengthen our legislation to ensure that artists and creatives are treated with fairness and receive all royalties that are due to them. These include the need to ensure that we reform the system of sharing royalties, improving collection and defining minimum standards of contracts between record companies and artists, protecting particularly young artists during the early stages of their careers who are desperate to get recording contracts by signing away their royalties. The Copyright Amendment Bill aims to address the recommendations in the Copyright Review Commission report by Judge Farlam, which found that there was a crisis of credibility in the collecting societies, which are the bodies mandated to collect royalty payments on behalf of artists and recording companies. For years, many artists have not been paid the royalties due to them. The Copyright Amendment Bill was developed through a consultative parliamentary process stretching over 2 years, where a diverse set of stakeholders and constituencies were active participants. A number of public hearings were held over an 18-month period in the National Assembly, where both written and oral comment was sought on the objectives and the efficacy of the bill, and written submissions were received in the National Council of Provinces. More than 250 written submissions were received by the relevant parliamentary committees. On the 27th of March 2019, both houses of Parliament passed the bill and sent it to the President for assent. We all know that the President referred the legislation back to Parliament, acknowledging the noble objectives of the legislation, but raising reservations on certain procedural and constitutional matters, which including the tagging of the bills. The retrospective provisions on royalty payments, amongst others. The President further felt that the fair use provisions had not been subject to proper consultation, and the legislation needed to be aligned with international standards. We have, as a result, undertaken a process to respond to the concern raised by the President and amended certain provisions of the bill. The process has proven to be very technical and at times cumbersome. The ANC understands the impatience of some sections of society regarding the delay in the finalization of this bill. However, as the President emphasized, it is our desire to ensure that the bill accommodates and benefits all those it is intended to benefit, particularly the visually impaired, educators, students, and artists. It is absolutely important for us to do our due diligence to ensure that the bill passes constitutional muster. The ANC supports the proposed amendments to the Copyright Act 1978, which inter alia includes clarifying the definition of certain words and expressions to allow for further limitations and exceptions regarding the reproduction of copyright works, providing for the sharing of royalties in copyright works, the payment of royalties in respect of literary, musical, artistic, audiovisual work, and resale royalty rights. Further additions to the bill include new definitions related to personal copies, exceptions for persons with disability and to broadcasting, making the new exclusive rights of communication to the public, the availability and distribution mechanisms applicable to published work and computer programs. In conclusion, the ANC understands the need to protect creative workers and support their socio-economic development goals. There are many conflicting interests at play, as some who would want to see the unabated continuation of the status quo. We have witnessed over the years how popular artists struggle to meet their basic needs because of unfair contracts. We have a mandate as the ANC to protect them. Therefore, the bill is a response by the ANC government to a pressing need of our country's artists, musicians, and other performers. The bill will provide a basis for generating an income stream that will contribute in developing a flourishing musical industry in our country. I thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Honorable members, are there any objections to the committee being granted permission in terms of Rule 286(4)(c) to inquire into amending other provisions of the copyright? Any? No objections. This means that the report is agreed to. Honorable members, let me just say today being the 1st of December, the Wellness Day, we wish to urge all our members of parliament in their constituencies to work with their municipalities in the locals to make sure that our communities understand what our government and the health department can offer, and encourage our communities, our children, to make sure that they go and test and everybody know their status, because the health department is ready to assist. Let it be upon us that we demystify the stigma that is there in our communities. Thank you very much. This concludes the business of the day, and the House is adjourned.